Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Reborn in Highschool DxD as a Lucifuge. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick update. The series What If Transmigrated into One Piece and became a Marine will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly at the end of the story. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these three fanfics. What if creating the strongest Strawhat crew by reading manga? What if a venerated soul reincarnated in Danmachi world? What if transmigrated and taking over Ichigo's body? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 81, New Servant, Roy vs. the Three Beast Warriors. Hey, you two, stop acting like it's the end of the world. I told you, I won't let you die, Roy said, shaking his head at mine and Leon's dramatic reactions. He took out a small vial and handed it to mine. Drink this. The vial contained a single drop of the Phoenix Tears. As long as someone wasn't completely dead, no matter how severe their injuries, this miraculous liquid could instantly heal them. Roy then turned to Sheil, who was cradled in his arms. Sheil, would you like to become my servant? He asked gently. He admired Sheil's unwavering spirit. Even after being bisected by Koro in the original story, she had managed to activate her Taigu's trump card to help mine escape danger. Sheil, barely clinging to life, whispered, yes. Roy nodded, satisfied. Her willingness made things easier. He used his magic to levitate Sheil, then summoned a blue magic circle beneath her. By the name of Roy Lucifuge, I command thee, Sheil, to become my servant devil, reborn as my pawn. As Roy chanted, the magic circle glowed brightly. He took out a pawn piece and gently merged it into Sheil's body. A pair of devil wings sprouted from her back. The light faded, and Sheil gently descended to the ground. She opened her eyes, tilted her head, and looked around with a puzzled expression. She had clearly died. How was this possible? Mine and Leon, witnessing this scene, were stunned. Roy had resurrected Sheil. Bringing someone back from the dead, it was an unbelievable sight. Sheil! Mine cried, throwing her arms around Sheil. She had already consumed the Phoenix Tears, and her injuries were completely healed. But she couldn't focus on that miraculous liquid right now. There, it's okay. Don't cry, Sheil comforted mine, patting her back, though she was unsure what had happened. Roy, what's going on? Leon asked, grabbing Roy's collar, her voice filled with urgency. We'll talk about it back at the base, Roy replied, deciding to come clean since his secret was out. Back at Night Raid headquarters, Leon and mine reported their mission. When they mentioned Sheil's resurrection, the other members stared at Roy in disbelief. Could someone truly bring back the dead? Roy shrugged. You can think of it as a healing-type Taigu, he explained vaguely. The Night Raid members, though still curious, didn't press further. They assumed Sheil hadn't actually died and that Roy had simply healed her. Only mine and Leon knew the truth was far more extraordinary. Sheil, how are you feeling? Najenda asked, concerned. I feel great, boss. Sheil replied cheerfully. Sheil, where are your glasses? Akame asked, noticing something unusual. Sheil was severely nearsighted and couldn't even walk without her glasses. My glasses? Sheil realized she wasn't wearing them, yet she could see perfectly. It seems I don't need them anymore, she exclaimed with joy. It appears his Taigu even cured Sheil's nearsightedness, Najenda mused. The Night Raid members were astonished. Not only had Sheil's injuries been healed, but her vision had been restored as well. It was unbelievable. The next morning, Roy was awakened by a knock on his door. Who is it? Roy, wake up. It was mine. She opened the door impatiently. Sheil? Why are you here? Mine looked at Sheil, who was sleeping beside Roy's bed, in surprise. Sheil sat up groggily. Because I'm Roy's servant now, so of course I have to attend to him. Attend? Mine stared at Sheil, then at Roy, her eyes wide with shock. Did you two already do that? She stammered, pointing at them accusingly. That? Sheil tilted her head, confused. Roy chuckled at her innocent reaction. Sheil, don't explain. It'll only make things worse, Roy said. And mine, stop making wild guesses. We didn't do anything. Humph. You're already master and servant. Who knows what you've been up to, mine huffed, turning away with a blush. Mine, if you want to become my servant too, you're more than welcome, Roy said with a smile, approaching her. What? No way. Mine retorted, her pigtails swishing as she ran away. Once she was a safe distance from Roy's room, she muttered, Idiot, you can't just invite people like that. It was clear that mine was interested in Roy's offer. But she was too tsundere to admit it, especially with Sheil present. In truth, after Roy saved Sheil, mine's affection for him had skyrocketed. Sheil had been injured while protecting her. If Sheil had died, mine would have blamed herself forever. In a way, Roy saving Sheil meant even more to her than saving herself. After breakfast, they enjoyed a pleasant day together. They went fishing with Akame, enjoyed Sheil's lap pillows, and teased mine. Life was peaceful and enjoyable. However, this calm was just the prelude to a storm. Najenda gathered the night raid members. Is everyone here? She asked, looking around. After confirming everyone was present, she continued, I have some news. Esdeath has successfully quelled the rebellion in the north and has returned to the capital. The night raid members' expressions turned serious. Although they hadn't witnessed Esdeath's power firsthand, Najenda's words hinted at her terrifying strength. Leon, Chelsea, go to the capital and investigate Esdeath's movements. Understood, they both replied. I'm curious to see what kind of person she is, Leon said with a grin. Najenda paused, then warned, she's an incredibly dangerous and ruthless individual. Be cautious. Understood, Leon replied dismissively. Such carelessness will get you killed one day, Chelsea chided, her lollipop still in her mouth. Indeed, Leon, I must also warn you. Don't even think about trying to assassinate Esdeath, Roy added, slapping Leon's shoulder. Even 10 of you are no match for her. If she catches you, even I won't be able to save you. Is she really that strong? Leon asked, taking Roy's words more seriously than Chelsea's. Yes. To defeat her, you would need an army of over 50,000 soldiers and at least 10 Taigu users, including Akame, Najenda explained grimly. But in reality, even that might not be enough. In the original story, after the Shikudazur was destroyed, Esdeath had single-handedly held off millions of soldiers and over a dozen Taigu users. Although this wasn't shown in the anime, it was a testament to her overwhelming power. In the end, after a series of battles, Esdeath had faced Akame in a final showdown. Akame had only managed to defeat her after mastering Morisame's trump card and tricking Esdeath into using her own powerful technique against her. Esdeath was truly a formidable opponent. The night raid members were shocked by Najenda's assessment. I understand, Leon finally said, nodding seriously. She wouldn't act recklessly. Najenda nodded in satisfaction. Along with Esdeath's return, there have been a series of assassinations of government officials in the capital, she continued. For officials and their guards, a total of 61 people have been killed. That's not the issue, though. The issue is this flyer with Night Raid's name on it, left at the crime scenes. Najenda showed them a flyer. They're trying to frame us? Bullet asked. Killing people and leaving flyers, it's clearly a setup, Lubbock commented with a shrug. Initially, people thought so too. But now, they're convinced it was us, Najenda said. Why? Mine wondered. Because the victims all had elite guards. Normal bandits couldn't have done this, Najenda explained. So, they deliberately targeted strong opponents. And only someone with power comparable to Night Raid could do that. Mine understood their strategy. It must be Esdeath's subordinates. They're trying to lure out the real Night Raid and eliminate us, Najenda concluded, her expression grim. Then let's turn the tables and take them down, Roy suggested with a smile. Exactly. If they acted, we'll put them in their place, Leon agreed excitedly. The others also voiced their agreement. Alright, let's show them the true strength of Night Raid. Najenda declared, standing up. There are 2 potential targets. We'll split into 2 teams to protect them. Siko, Akame, and Sheil will be one team. Roy, Lubbock, and Bullet will be the other. Yes. With the orders given, they set off for their assigned locations. Roy's team was tasked with protecting a high-ranking official on a luxurious cruise ship, the Ryusen, docked at the start of the Great Canal near the outskirts of the capital. This was where the 3 beasts, Esdeath's subordinates, were lying in wait. Roy and Lubbock boarded the ship disguised as passengers, while Bullet, being a wanted criminal, had to sneak on board and hide. The ship departed, leaving the harbor. As they sailed away, a melodious flute tune echoed through the air. It's starting, Roy commented with a chuckle, sipping his tea and enjoying some snacks. The flute music, designed to weaken and incapacitate people, had no effect on him. However, it worked perfectly on ordinary humans. As the melody continued, the passengers in the hall collapsed one by one. Soon, Roy was the only one left, still leisurely enjoying his tea. Oh? Someone's still awake? A burly man wielding 2 large axes approached him. It was Daidara, one of the 3 beasts. His Taigu was Belvok, a pair of axes that could only be wielded by someone with immense strength. The axes could be split in 2 and thrown like boomerangs, capable of chasing their target as long as Daidara had the strength to control them. Daidara was surprised to see Roy unfazed. How are you unaffected? Such trivial tricks are useless against me, Roy replied calmly, taking a sip of his tea. I see. You're with Night Raid, then. Die. Daidara roared, charging at Roy with his axes raised. Roy didn't even look at him. As Daidara reached him, a flash of Roy's blade sliced through his neck. Thwack! Daidara's head flew off, blood gushing from his neck. Roy didn't hesitate, nor did he waste time with words. With a single, casual strike, he had instantly killed Daidara. He hadn't even moved from his spot, as if he had swatted a fly. Just then, a window shattered. 2 figures leaped from the 2nd floor, attacking Roy from both sides. They were the remaining members of the 3 beasts. Niao, who wielded the flute Taigu, Scream. And Liver, who wielded the ring Taigu, Black Marlin. Roy, watch out! Bullet and Lubbock, who had arrived, warned Roy. Roy smirked, summoning his Ice Rose sword. Ice breathing, 3rd form, Ice Slash. He swung his sword with incredible speed. A flash of cold light, and Niao and Liver were decapitated. But not a single drop of blood spilled. Their bodies were frozen solid. This technique, Ice Slash, could instantly freeze its target. Thud! The frozen corpses fell to the ground, shattering into countless shards of ice. They had been killed before they could even use their Taigu. He's so strong! Bullet and Lubbock exclaimed, their eyes wide with shock. Lubbock, collect their Taigu. We're leaving, Roy instructed, sitting back down and taking another sip of his tea. Yes, sir. Lubbock, seemingly accepting Roy as his leader, retrieved the Taigu from the 3 beasts without question. Bullet took the helm, and soon, the ship docked back at the harbor. They returned to the Night Raid headquarters with the 3 Taigu. These are the Taigu used by the 3 beasts. Lubbock reported the details of their mission to Najenda, presenting her with the 3 Taigu. Akame, Leon, and Chelsea had also been recalled. Well done. This will significantly weaken Esdeath's forces, Najenda said with a satisfied nod. Actually, Roy single-handedly defeated the three beasts, Lubbock admitted sheepishly. Everyone looked at Roy, but they didn't seem surprised. They knew he was powerful. I'll personally deliver these Taiga to headquarters. For now, Roy will be in charge of Night Raid, Najenda announced, looking at Roy. No problem, Roy agreed with a smile. He was the strongest and most enigmatic member of Night Raid, which was why Najenda trusted him to lead them in her absence. After giving some instructions, Najenda departed with the Taigu. Roy addressed the Night Raid members. Although boss is temporarily away, we can't let our guard down. Lubbock, Leon, and Chelsea, you'll go to the capital tomorrow to gather information. The rest of you, remain on standby. Yes. They admired Roy and readily followed his commands. Chapter 82, Targeting Kurome. The next day, Leon, Chelsea, and Lubbock went to the imperial capital. Roy and Akame headed into the forest to hunt danger beasts for food. Akame, I heard you have a younger sister. Can you tell me about her? Roy asked as they walked. Akame seemed surprised by his sudden question. She was silent for a moment, lost in thought, then began recounting her past with Kurome. When we were young, Kurome and I only had each other. We lived on the streets until we were bought by the Empire and trained as assassins. Roy listened quietly as Akame shared her story. He felt a pang of sympathy for the two sisters. They had endured a harsh childhood, and now they were forced to fight each other. He remembered that in the original story, and the anime, Kurome had ultimately died by Akame's hand. The pain of killing one's own sibling was unimaginable. Even though you were separated, you still love Kurome, don't you? Roy asked gently, patting Akame's head. Yes. That's why I must be the one to kill her, Akame replied with a serious expression. Roy was speechless. Why were they always talking about killing each other? Akame, you can't say that. She's your only sister. Exactly. Because she's my sister, I can't let her continue to be used by the Empire. Roy sighed. She was so stubborn. Don't you want to free Kurome from the Empire's grasp? Then you two can be together again. That's impossible. I once invited Kurome to leave the Empire with me, but she refused. She believes I betrayed her, Akame said, her expression filled with sadness. That's because you didn't show her how truly dark the Empire is, Roy explained patiently. They had been trained as assassins from a young age, with no proper education. They didn't understand right from wrong. Akame only realized the truth after witnessing the death of her friend, Martha. That was when she met Najenda, the leader of Night Raid, and decided to defect from the Empire. Kurome, being younger than Akame, couldn't possibly understand. She only knew that her sister had betrayed the Empire, and thus, she believed Akame had betrayed her as well. But there's nothing I can do, Akame said, looking at him helplessly. With her quiet and reserved nature, how could she possibly convince Kurome? If she could have, Kurome would have left with her long ago. Then leave it to me, Roy declared confidently. Akame's eyes lit up with hope. She undoubtedly loved her sister. If Kurome could truly return to her. Thank you, Roy, Akame said with a grateful nod. You're welcome. If you really want to thank me, then become my servant, Roy said half-jokingly. Akame blushed. All right. What? You agree? Roy was surprised. Yes, Akame repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. That's great, Akame. Don't worry, I'll bring Kurome back to you, Roy promised, happily patting her head. He was determined to fulfill his promise. Look. We found our food, Akame. Let's go. Roy suddenly spotted a tiger-like danger beast. Akame's eyes lit up, and she drooled at the sight of the potential meal. Eliminate. The next morning, Roy and Seiko arrived at a library in the imperial capital. Lubbock was already waiting for them at the entrance. Please come in, he said, opening the door and leading them inside. They reached the back of the library. Lubbock flipped a few switches, and the bookshelves parted, revealing a hidden staircase leading underground. "Ha, what do you think? This is my secret base," Lubbock said proudly. "It's impressive," Roy nodded in approval. They descended into the hidden chamber. "Yo! Welcome to our secret base in the capital." Leon greeted them with a cheerful shout, her cheeks flushed, and pulled Roy into a hug. "Leon, have you been drinking?" Roy asked, gently pushing her away and settling onto a sofa. "So, any news in the capital?" he inquired. "The main topic of discussion is Esdeath's newly formed special police force, the Jaegers," Chelsea replied, chewing on a lollipop. Esdeath might be seen as a demon by the people of the outer regions, but within the capital, she was a revered hero. So, it was natural for news of her forming the Jaegers to spread quickly. "Any information on the Jaegers?" Roy asked. Chelsea, Leon, and Lubbock exchanged awkward glances. It seemed they hadn't gathered any information on the Jaegers yet, perhaps because it was a newly formed group. "That's all right. After all, they were just formed recently," Roy said dismissively. He knew quite a bit about the Jaegers. In the original story, there were 6 members. Kurome, who wielded the Taigu March of the Dead, Yatsufusa. Wave, who wielded the Taigu Grand Chariot. Seiryu Ubiquitous, who wielded the Taigu Hekatonkires, Koro. Run, who wielded the Taigu Mestima. Dr. Stylish, who wielded the Taigu Perfector. And Bulls, who wielded the Taigu Rubicant. However, Seria had been killed by Leon, and her Taigu had been retrieved. Roy wasn't sure how many members the Jaegers currently had. "Any other news in the capital?" he asked. He suspected that Esdeath's martial arts tournament would be held soon. It was an opportunity to approach Esdeath. He could use this opportunity to join the Jaegers and get close to Kurome. After all, he had promised Akame that he would bring Kurome back. If he didn't join the Jaegers, it would be nearly impossible to persuade Kurome. Moreover, Wave was a potential threat. In the manga, Wave had won Kurome's heart. Roy had to be cautious. "Speaking of which, there's been a lot of talk about the martial arts tournament hosted by Esdeath," Chelsea said, handing him a flyer. Roy took the flyer and examined it. It was as he had expected. Although it was advertised as a martial arts tournament, it was likely a selection process for new Jaegers members and potential romantic partners for Esdeath. "I have to participate in this tournament," Roy declared. "Why?" Chelsea voiced everyone's question. "If I'm not mistaken, the winner of this tournament will likely join the Jaegers, right? This is a good opportunity to gather information on them," Roy explained, fabricating a reason. "But that's too dangerous," Leon protested. Chelsea and Lubbock also looked at him with concern. Only Siko didn't question his decision. "Ha, don't you know how strong I am? And I'm not going to do anything reckless. I'll just gather information and find a chance to slip away," Roy reassured them. They reluctantly agreed. Lubbock led them to the tournament venue. The place was packed with people. "Wow, so many people!" Leon exclaimed. "You guys find a seat and watch the matches." "I'll go register," Roy said before heading towards the registration area. Siko, Leon, Chelsea, and Lubbock found seats. "These guys are so weak," Chelsea commented after watching a few matches. The fighters were too weak to hold her interest. "That guy is pretty good. I heard he's a rank 8 Imperial Fist," Lubbock said, pointing at one of the fighters. "When is Roy going to fight?" "I'm falling asleep," Leon yawned. She had been drinking earlier and was feeling drowsy. "Soon, I think," Siko replied, her eyes fixed on the arena, waiting for Roy's turn. After registering, Roy sat and waited for his match. He suddenly realized that this tournament was also Esdeath's way of choosing a romantic partner. Did he meet her criteria? He recalled Esdeath's requirements. Prioritize future potential and strive to become a general. Have the courage to hunt danger beasts with her, even empty-handed. Have grown up in the border regions, not the capital, like her. Be younger than her, so she can dominate them. Have a pure smile. He met the first 4 conditions perfectly. Only the last one, having a pure smile, was a bit tricky. Roy didn't consider himself a pure person, but he could probably manage a pure smile. However, he wasn't good at faking it. Perhaps he could smile naturally, but he wouldn't force it. But it seemed the last condition wasn't mandatory. Roy stroked his chin. It seemed he met all the requirements. He had initially planned to conquer Esdeath with his strength, as she believed in the law of the jungle. The strong ruled the weak. But now, it seemed he could also charm his way into her heart. Roy smirked. Just then, a soldier informed him that it was his turn to fight. Roy followed the soldier to the arena. His opponent was a 3-meter-tall, bull-headed creature. Are there beastmen in this world? Or is he a minotaur? Roy was confused. The audience, seeing a small boy facing the massive bull-headed warrior, erupted in mockery. Hey, kid, go home and drink your milk. Ha, such a small child wants to participate? Isn't he afraid of getting killed? Just surrender. Yeah, this isn't the place for you. Roy ignored their taunts. He would let his actions speak for themselves. As he stepped into the arena, Esdeath, who was watching from a raised platform, noticed him and was immediately intrigued. Roy, a devil with Mao-class strength, had an aura that set him apart. Common folks couldn't sense it, but Esdeath could. Begin. Wave, acting as the referee, announced the start of the match. Taste my crushing iron fist, the bull-headed warrior roared, charging at Roy with a ferocious expression. Roy grinned, deciding to have some fun. With his hands casually tucked in his pockets, he effortlessly dodged the bull-headed warrior's attacks. The warrior, enraged by Roy's nonchalance, attacked even more fiercely. Damn it, I'll kill you, he roared. But his punches couldn't even touch Roy. He only succeeded in tiring himself out. Damn you, stop dodging, he yelled, panting. Oh, all right. It's time to end this, Roy said calmly. He suddenly appeared before the bull-headed warrior and made a funny face. Blah. The warrior's eyes bulged, and he collapsed. Roy chuckled, enjoying his little prank. The audience was confused. Why had his opponent fainted after Roy simply made a face? That's it. The winner is Roy. Wave declared. The audience cheered. That boy is amazing. Run, who was standing beside Esdeath, exclaimed. He made it seem like he was just making a face. But he actually landed 3 punches in an instant. It was too fast for anyone to see. What a skilled young man. Indeed. Esdeath nodded absently, her eyes fixed on Roy. She touched her cheek, a faint blush creeping onto her face. I've found him, she murmured. You mean a new member for the Jaegers? That boy is certainly qualified, Run commented, misunderstanding her. In every aspect. Esdeath said, then descended from the platform and approached Roy in the arena. Your name is Roy, right? What a wonderful name, she said with a smile. Yes, Roy replied. That was an impressive match. Now, for your reward. Esdeath stepped closer, reaching into her coat. What? Roy was confused. This scene seemed familiar. Was Esdeath attracted to him? But he hadn't even shown her a pure smile. He didn't realize that his playful expression and unique aura had already captivated Esdeath. Just as a beautiful girl acting cute could be incredibly charming, a handsome boy acting playful could also be quite endearing. Esdeath was smitten with his mischievous grin and his distinctive aura. Roy watched as Esdeath pulled something out of her coat, feeling a sense of resignation. She took out a collar and tried to put it around his neck. Roy dodged with a slight sidestep. Oh, so the reward is a collar? Unfortunately, I'm not worthy of such gift, Roy chuckled, shrugging. It's not up to you, Esdeath replied with a playful smile, trying to put the collar on him again. Esdeath-san, I already said I don't need this. Why don't you give it to someone else? Roy teased, dodging her attempts like a game of tag. Oh no, Roy has been targeted by Esdeath. What do we do? Leon said, watching the scene unfold with a worried frown. I think Roy is trying to seduce her. And it's Esdeath, no less. But that's not a bad thing. If Roy can win her over, that would be great, Chelsea commented, twirling her lollipop. Chapter 83, She Fall in Love with Me? Run, observing from the platform, was in a predicament. He hadn't expected Esdeath to personally descend and attempt to claim the young man. And he certainly hadn't anticipated that the boy would be able to evade her for so long. However, he had to intervene now. The spectators were getting riled up, treating the whole scene as entertainment. You're quite fast, Roy, Esdeath commented, her smile widening. The longer the chase continued, the more impressed she became with Roy's agility. Oh, it's alright, I guess. But you won't catch me. You can keep that collar for yourself, Roy replied with a shrug and a playful wink. Oh? Is that so? Esdeath chuckled, her eyes sparkling with amusement. She crouched down, placing a hand on the ground. Freeze, she commanded. A layer of ice instantly spread across the arena floor, originating from her hand and creeping towards Roy. Roy smirked. Playing with ice? He was quite familiar with that. But this wasn't the time for a magic duel. He leaped back, dodging the ice and landing behind Wave, who was acting as the referee. The ice followed, instantly encasing Wave's feet. Hey, Captain, it's me. Wave cried out in alarm. But the ice continued to spread upwards, quickly encasing his entire body. Esdeath paused, surprised, and stopped her ice magic. Run approached her. Captain, perhaps we should take him back and discuss this further, he suggested. Yes, that's a good idea, Esdeath agreed, releasing Wave from his icy prison. Achoo! Achoo! Wave shivered, rubbing his arms for warmth. Hey, are you alright? Roy asked with a chuckle, patting Wave's shoulder. Wave glared at him. If it weren't for Roy, he wouldn't have been frozen. You'll come with us, won't you? Run asked Roy with a smile. Of course. Didn't you say there would be a reward for winning? Roy replied with a grin. Indeed. Then let's go. The four of them headed towards the Imperial Palace. Along the way, Esdeath stole glances at Roy, her cheeks flushed, like a love-struck girl. Roy couldn't help but feel a bit smug. It seemed Esdeath had truly taken a liking to him. He did have a knack for charming people. He had initially intended to conquer her with his strength, but it seemed his charm was doing the work for him. Run explained that they wanted Roy to join the Jaegers, and Roy readily agreed. They soon arrived at the Jaegers meeting room. The other members were already there. Roy immediately spotted Kurome, who was munching on snacks. As if sensing his gaze, Kurome hugged her snacks protectively and glared at him. I won't share with you, she declared. Roy's lips twitched. Just like her sister, a complete glutton, he thought. But while Akame preferred meat, Kurome had a sweet tooth. Now then, let me introduce everyone. Esdeath began. This is Roy. He's a new member of the Jaegers, and also, my beloved. Esdeath's straightforward declaration, using the term beloved, made Roy a bit uncomfortable. It felt like he was being claimed as a possession. It's a pleasure to meet you all, Roy said with a smile, trying to maintain his composure. He quickly walked over and sat beside Kurome. Wave, still shivering from his earlier icy encounter, was dumbfounded to find that there were no seats left. After the introductions, Esdeath briefed them on their first mission as a team. It was a simple task: eliminate a group of bandits. The Jaegers set off. By evening, they arrived at the bandits' hideout. Destroying this place will be our first mission as the Jaegers. Let's make it a success, Run said, acting as the leader for this operation. Yes, the others replied. Esdeath and Roy stood at a distance, observing the mission. The 5 Jaegers launched a direct assault on the bandit camp. The bandits were no match for the Taigu users, and the camp was quickly overrun. Roy, do you dislike me? Esdeath suddenly asked, her gaze fixed on Roy. Eh? Roy was taken aback, then chuckled. Of course not. I'm quite fond of you, Esdeath-san. Esdeath blushed. This is the first time I've felt this way, liking someone. It's not an unpleasant feeling. Roy was speechless. He had come here to win over Kurome, not Esdeath. How had this happened? Well then, I should join the fight, Roy said, quickly excusing himself. It wasn't that he disliked Esdeath, but the atmosphere was getting a bit too intimate for his liking. He felt like he was the one being pursued. To win over Esdeath, he had to be the one in control. With that thought, he entered the bandit camp. He spotted Kurome and Wave nearby. An idea struck him. He swiftly approached a bandit who was about to ambush Kurome and kicked him away. Wave, who had been rushing over to save Kurome, was annoyed. Kurome, are you alright? Roy asked. I'm fine. I already sensed him, Kurome replied flatly. Roy was speechless. She was so blunt. Here, this is for you, he said, offering her a lollipop. Kurome's eyes lit up, and she snatched the lollipop, popping it into her mouth. Thank you. Wave, witnessing how easily Roy had won over Kurome with a single lollipop, was dumbfounded. After this small gesture of goodwill, the mission to eliminate the bandits was completed. They returned to the capital. That night, Esdeath invited Roy to her room. Roy didn't refuse and followed her. He had expected Esdeath to discuss something with him, but she simply went to take a bath. Could it be? He wondered. After a while, Esdeath emerged from the bathroom. Sorry to keep you waiting, she said, wearing only a shirt. The sight stirred something within Roy, but he quickly regained his composure. It's all right, he replied with a smile. Well, I'm not sure what to do at a time like this. I suppose following my instincts is the best approach, Esdeath said, closing her eyes shyly. Her straightforwardness caught Roy off guard. But he shook his head resolutely. No. Esdeath opened her eyes, surprised. Why? Roy shrugged and walked towards the door. It's not the right time yet, he said with a smile, opening the door. Wait. Esdeath tried to stop him. No need. Run has already arranged a room for me, Roy replied, exiting the room and closing the door behind him. He breathed a sigh of relief. This was a matter of pride. Roy then headed towards his room. However, as he was about to reach his room, he spotted Kurome sitting on the rooftop, eating snacks. His eyes lit up. Wasn't this the perfect opportunity to test his persuasive skills? He leaped onto the rooftop and sat beside Kurome. I won't share my snacks with you, Kurome declared, hugging her snacks protectively and interrupting him. Roy coughed awkwardly. He quickly took out a bag of candy, opened it, and popped one into his mouth. The sweet aroma wafted towards Kurome, and her eyes were glued to the candy. I'll share with you, Roy offered with a smile, holding out the bag. Thank you. Kurome eagerly took the candy and popped one into her mouth. Her eyes lit up as she savored the sweet flavor. Kurome, you have an older sister named Akame, right? Roy asked casually. Kurome froze. Yes, she's my family. But she betrayed the Empire. I can't wait to see her again. And when I do, I'll kill her myself. Because she's my beloved sister. Kurome giggled, her voice laced with a disturbing undertone. Roy sighed inwardly. Why were these sisters always talking about killing each other? Akame told me about your childhood. Kurome, don't you want to go back to those days? Kurome was silent for a moment, then shook her head. We can't go back. Akame betrayed the Empire, and she betrayed me. Have you ever wondered why Akame betrayed the Empire? Kurome remained silent, but she had indeed pondered this question, with no answers. Akame's betrayal had been so sudden and unexpected. Because the Empire forced her to kill her best friend, Roy explained. That's when Akame realized how dark the Empire truly is. She was afraid that her next mission would be to kill you, Kurome. So, she decided to defect, hoping you would join her. But you didn't respond. Kurome's eyes widened, and she stopped eating her snacks. This simple logic was easy for anyone in the modern world to understand. But for Kurome, who had never received a proper education, it was a revelation. No one had ever explained it to her like this. After a long silence, Kurome shook her head. We can't go back. It's impossible. She jumped off the rooftop and returned to her room. Even after understanding the truth, Kurome still didn't intend to leave the Empire. She had been injected with drugs to enhance her physical abilities at a young age. These drugs had taken a toll on her body. She was also heavily dependent on them and needed regular doses. The snacks she constantly ate were actually those drugs. Without them, she wouldn't last long. Roy sighed, watching her leave. It seemed his persuasive skills weren't enough. He understood Kurome's condition. Even with the drugs, she wouldn't live much longer. In the original story, it wasn't so much that Kurome wanted to kill Akame, but rather, she wanted to die by Akame's hand. Perhaps that was still her wish. It seemed he needed to find another way to convince her. The next morning, Roy found Kurome in the meeting room, eating snacks alone. He sat beside her and placed a variety of snacks before her. Kurome's eyes lit up, and she drooled at the sight of the treats. Here, Kurome, eat up. These are all for you, Roy said with a smile. Thank you. Kurome eagerly grabbed the snacks and started munching on them. Kurome, it's almost lunchtime. Are you still going to eat snacks? Wave asked, approaching them with a cup of tea. Mind your own business, Kurome replied flatly, continuing to eat. You should eat more seafood, Wave persisted. So I can smell like a salty fish like you? Kurome retorted, glancing at him. Really? Do I smell like that? Wave was surprised and sniffed himself. Of course you do, salty-fished uncle, Roy chuckled, amused by Kurome's unexpected humor. Salty-fished uncle? Wave was dumbfounded. He was only 20 years old. I'm 17, Roy explained. And Kurome is probably even younger. So, you're definitely an uncle. Wave thought about it and realized Roy had a point. But he was really only 20. Just as he was about to protest, the door opened. Esdeath entered the meeting room and addressed Roy. Roy, we're heading to MT Fake. It's hunting time for the next few days. Oh, okay, Roy agreed. Wave and Kurome will also come. We'll hunt danger beasts and search for night raid members. Understood. Wave and Kurome nodded. I'll take the east side with Kurome. Wave and Roy, you take the west side. We'll switch after nightfall. I'll be with Roy then, Esdeath said, looking at Roy with a sly smile. After being rejected the other night, she had sought advice from Bulls, who was married. He had told her to be patient and showcase her strength to capture Roy's heart. That's why she had arranged this hunting expedition, to impress Roy with her power. I have an objection, Roy suddenly declared, raising his hand. Oh? What is it, Roy? Esdeath asked, intrigued. I want to be partnered with Kurome. Esdeath was momentarily surprised, then chuckled. Very well. She didn't mind. After all, she would be with Roy at night. It didn't matter who he was with during the day. They set off for MT Fake. The mountain was sparsely vegetated and shrouded in mist. Roy and Kurome searched for danger beasts together. Kurome, if I could heal your body, would you leave the Empire and reconcile with Akame? Roy asked suddenly. Kurome was silent for a moment, then looked at him with suspicion. You keep trying to persuade me to leave the Empire. Who are you really? Although she lacked formal education, Kurome wasn't stupid. Roy's repeated attempts to sway her had raised her suspicions. Sigh, I guess I have no choice then, Roy said with a dramatic sigh. Clang. Sensing danger, Kurome drew her Taigu, March of the Dead, Yatsufusa. That won't work on me, Kurome, Roy warned. He vanished and reappeared behind Kurome. Chapter 84, Akame vs. Kurome, Reborn Sisters. Kurome's eyes widened in shock, but before she could even turn around, Roy delivered a swift chop to her neck. Ugh! She groaned, her eyelids growing heavy as darkness consumed her. Roy caught her before she could fall, a sigh escaping his lips. He had promised Akame he would bring Kurome back, but he hadn't expected it to happen like this. Well, Kurome can be quite stubborn, he thought, a hint of amusement in his eyes. With a sigh, Roy spread his devil wings and took to the sky, carrying Kurome in his arms. MT Fake wasn't far from Night Raid's hideout. Within half an hour, Roy landed at the base. I'm back, he announced. The Night Raid members rushed out to greet him, their faces filled with surprise and curiosity. Roy's back. Welcome back. Who's that little girl in your arms? Don't tell me you kidnapped her. The base was abuzz with excitement upon his return. But their attention quickly shifted to the unconscious girl in his arms. Ahem. Don't make any assumptions. This is Akame's younger sister, Kurome, Roy explained. He looked at Akame. Akame, I brought your sister back. Akame's sister? They do look alike. The others observed the two sisters, noticing their striking resemblance. Akame approached Roy, her expression filled with sadness as she looked at Kurome. The two sisters, who had once relied on each other for survival, were now separated and pitted against each other due to the Empire's darkness. Their reunion was bittersweet. What happened to Kurome? Akame asked, seeing that her sister was unconscious. Well. Roy hesitated. You know Kurome isn't easily persuaded, so I had to take a more direct approach, he admitted sheepishly. He had initially planned to convince Kurome to come willingly, but he had resorted to knocking her out. Is she a member of the Jaegers? Chelsea asked. Yes, she is. And she's very strong, Roy confirmed, then turned to Akame. I have a plan. To break Kurome's stubbornness and resolve their conflict, he had to let her die once. Kurome was obsessed with killing Akame. And knowing that she didn't have much time left to live only intensified her obsession. His plan was to have Akame kill Kurome, then he would resurrect her as a devil. This would not only resolve the conflict between the sisters but also heal Kurome's body. And, as a bonus, Roy would gain another servant. It was a win-win-win situation. Akame, after hearing his plan, agreed without hesitation. They went to a clearing and waited for Kurome to wake up. Kurome soon regained consciousness. The first thing she saw was Akame. One-ichan. Kurome. They stared at each other, lost in memories. It's been so long, One-ichan. You always protected me, but in the end, you betrayed me, Kurome said with a sad smile. Akame recalled their childhood together and began to speak. We had no one but each other. The only place that needed us was the Empire. We became assassins. Eliminate the root of evil before it can cause chaos, and bring happiness to people. That's what they instilled in us. That's how they raised us. We followed orders, killing those deemed traitors to the Empire. Because we believed it was the right thing to do. Kurome's voice rose in agitation. But, why did you betray the Empire and join Night Raid? Why? Do you know how much it hurt to be left behind? Ever since that day, all I've wanted is to kill you. Will killing me bring you salvation? Akame asked calmly. There's no such thing as salvation. But if I kill you, you'll belong only to me, Kurome replied with a twisted smile. She drew her Taigu, March of the Dead, Yatsufusa. Two figures appeared behind her, Natala and Doya, the puppets controlled by her Taigu. Then let's fight. Akame declared, drawing her own Taigu, Murasame. The battle began. Kurome was incredibly strong. In the original story, she had single-handedly held off the entire night raid team with the 8 puppets controlled by her Taigu. Although most of her puppets were destroyed, Kurome had escaped unscathed. She had even managed to kill Chelsea when Chelsea tried to assassinate her. Akame, without having mastered Morisame's trump card, was slightly weaker than Kurome. However, Kurome didn't seem to be fighting with her full strength. The two sisters clashed, their words filled with accusations and justifications, but neither could sway the other. Suddenly, Kurome intentionally created an opening. Akame seized the opportunity and charged. Their blades pierced each other, as if they intended to die together. But just as Kurome's blade was about to reach Akame, it veered off course, missing its target. Akame's blade, however, pierced Kurome's heart. Kurome! Akame gasped, her eyes wide with shock. Kurome embraced Akame, whispering in her ear, "One-chan, I love you." Akame's body trembled as tears streamed down her face. Their long and painful conflict had finally come to an end. Roy approached them, looking at the lifeless Kurome with a sigh. It was clear that Kurome had intentionally let Akame kill her. It was her way of ending her twisted life. Then let me give her a new life, Roy thought. Akame looked at him with pleading eyes. Don't worry, Akame. Kurome will have a new life. I promise, Roy reassured her, gently patting her head. He lifted Kurome's body and used his magic to levitate her. A large, blue magic circle appeared. Roy chanted the incantation, his voice filled with power and authority. By the name of Roy Lucifuge, I command thee, Kurome, to become my servant devil, reborn as my knight. A night piece merged into Kurome's body, and devil wings sprouted from her back. After a while, Kurome gently descended to the ground. She opened her eyes, looking at Roy with confusion. Kurome, you have been reborn. Now, you belong to me, Roy said with a smile, patting her head. Yes, master. Kurome replied with a bright smile, throwing her arms around him. Just call me Oni-chan, Kurome. Okay, Oni-chan. Akame, seeing her sister resurrected, also smiled. One-chan. Kurome looked at Akame and hugged her tightly. Kurome. The two sisters embraced, their bond as strong as it had been in their childhood. Roy was relieved that he had finally resolved the conflict between the sisters. He felt a deep sympathy for the two girls who had endured so much hardship. Akame and Kurome separated, and Akame approached Roy, her cheeks flushed. It's time to fulfill our promise, she said. Promise? Could it be? Roy's heart leaped with joy as he embraced Akame. One-chan is going to become Roy's servant too? That's great. Now we can be together forever. Kurome exclaimed with a cheerful smile. Akame blushed even harder. Roy didn't waste any time and began the transformation ritual. By the name of Roy Lucifuge, I command thee, Akame, to become my servant devil, reborn as my knight. Another night piece emerged and merged into Akame's body. Both Akame and Kurome were speed-type fighters, so the night piece was perfect for them. Soon, Akame's transformation was complete. As devils, both sisters' strength reached the peak of high-class devil, just a step away from ultimate class. However, breaking through that final barrier wouldn't be easy. Roy, holding both sisters' hands, returned to the Night Raid headquarters. The other Night Raid members, having learned about the sisters' past, were filled with sympathy for Kurome. That night, they held a feast to celebrate Kurome's new life. Akame and Kurome, the two gluttons, ate until they were stuffed. The next day, Akame barged into Roy's room. Roy, it's terrible. Kurome is gone, she cried. Huh? Roy woke up with a start. What are you talking about, Akame? I said Kurome is gone. Akame repeated, her voice filled with panic. She didn't even seem to notice Sheil, who was sleeping beside Roy. Kurome is gone? Roy was confused. Just then, the blanket was pulled back, and a head of black hair emerged. It was Kurome. One-chan, what are you talking about? She mumbled sleepily. Akame's eye twitched as she saw Kurome emerge from Roy's bed. She had slept with Kurome last night, but when she woke up this morning, Kurome was nowhere to be found. She had rushed to Roy's room, only to find her sister in his bed. Akame felt a sense of helplessness. Oni-chan's bed is so comfortable. Wani-chan, do you want to join us? Kurome invited with a smile. Akame blushed but nodded. Sure. Roy was speechless. Why were they both here? This small bed couldn't fit all of them. He sighed. It seemed he would have to expand the bed today. He glanced at Sheil, who was still sleeping soundly beside him. And this idiot, I told her not to sleep on the edge of the bed, but she never listens. He gently moved Sheil to the center of the bed, then got up. Meanwhile, Esdeath had been looking forward to switching partners that night. She was eager to showcase her strength to Roy. But when night came, Roy and Kurome didn't show up. Esdeath and Wave searched for them. Esdeath initially thought they might have encountered some trouble and were delayed. However, after searching fruitlessly, she realized that Roy and Kurome had likely left. Esdeath was heartbroken and determined to find Roy. Dr. Stylish, another member of the Jaegers, followed the trail Roy had left, along with his stylish squad. Roy hadn't expected Dr. Stylish to find them, especially since he had flown back. That evening, at the night raid hideout, Lubbock rushed to Roy. Roy, it's bad. My perimeter barrier has detected a large number of people approaching. Oh? Roy looked at Lubbock in surprise. He didn't know who would come looking for them at this time. Gather all night raid members. Prepare for battle, he ordered. Yes. Once everyone was assembled, Roy led them to a hilltop overlooking the approaching enemies. They saw a group of strange-looking individuals with white masks crawling towards them. And among them, it's Dr. Stylish. Kurome recognized him instantly. If Dr. Stylish was here, then Esdeath. Kurome scanned the area but couldn't find Esdeath or the other Jaegers. It seems only Dr. Stylish has come, Roy commented. He hadn't expected Dr. Stylish to find them, especially since he had flown back. However, compared to the original story, Dr. Stylish had arrived a day later, perhaps because it took him longer to find their trail. But it didn't matter. In the original story, Night Raid had been caught off guard due to a drinking party, allowing Dr. Stylish to launch a successful surprise attack. But this time, they were prepared. Bullet, Lubbock, Akame, you take the left flank. Siko, Leon, Sheil, you take the right flank. Mine, Chelsea, Kurome, you'll attack from the front with me. Our goal is to eliminate all enemies. And be careful of poison gas and their suicide bomber infantry. Roy issued his commands swiftly. Yes. The Night Raid members charged towards Dr. Stylish and his stylish squad. This wasn't the Night Raid of the original story. Not only were Sheil and Bullet alive, but they also had Roy, Siko, Kurome. They were stronger than ever before. The battle began. Dr. Stylish's infantry was no match for the Night Raid. Even his elite modified humans, Toby and Truma, were easily defeated when facing 3 Night Raid members at once. Moreover, Akame's strength was now comparable to Esdeath's. Dr. Stylish's forces crumbled upon contact. This is bad, Dr. Stylish. We've been ambushed by Night Raid. They're incredibly strong. We've already suffered heavy casualties, Mimi, a woman with large ears, reported to Dr. Stylish. She was one of Team Stylish, enhanced with superhuman hearing. Dr. Stylish took out a remote control. In that case, these research materials are no longer needed, he said coldly, pressing a button. The infantry's stomachs suddenly swelled. Boom! 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 Explosions erupted across the battlefield. However, thanks to Roy's warning, the Night Raid members had taken cover and were unharmed. Dr. Stylish, none of them were injured, me, another member of Team Stylish with enhanced eyesight, reported. Dr. Stylish's expression darkened. How is the poison gas dispersal going? Dr. Stylish, the wind is blowing in the opposite direction. We can't spread the gas, Hannah, the last member of Team Stylish with an enhanced sense of smell, reported. There's no point in forcing it. Let's retreat. Seeing that his tactics were ineffective, Dr. Stylish fled. Dr. Stylish. Chapter 85, Ice Thousand Armed Cannon. Boom! A golden beam of energy erupted before Dr. Stylish and his companions, halting their escape. Damn it! It seems they won't let us go that easily, Dr. Stylish growled, his face contorted in frustration. Dr. Stylish, we will protect you, his two bodyguards declared, standing before him. No. You two can't possibly withstand so many Taigu users, Dr. Stylish said, shaking his head. He seemed to be contemplating something drastic. He hesitated for a moment, then pulled out a syringe filled with a strange liquid, a crazed look in his eyes. Secret technique number 2, it seems I have no choice. He plunged the syringe into his arm, injecting the liquid into his body. His form started to distort and bubble ominously. It's coming. This is the ultimate fashion, he screamed, his voice a mixture of madness and triumph. Dr. Stylish's body rapidly expanded, growing into a grotesque giant, dozens of meters tall. Magnificent! As expected of Dr. Stylish. His two bodyguards gazed up at the transformed Dr. Stylish, completely oblivious to the danger they were in. You are valuable nutrients. Become one with me. Dr. Stylish roared, grabbing his two bodyguards and stuffing them into the gaping maw that had appeared on his monstrous form. After a sickening crunching sound, Dr. Stylish's body grew even larger, reaching 100 meters in height. The Night Raid members stared in shock. He's a monster! Chelsea exclaimed. How disgusting! Mine grimaced. I'm quite interested in his corpse, Kurome commented, her eyes gleaming with morbid curiosity. She was considering whether to add this giant to her collection of corpse puppets. He's just a big oaf with too many weaknesses. Watch this. Roy scoffed, unimpressed by Dr. Stylish's transformation. Secret art, Ice Thousand Armed Cannon. He raised his hand, and a chunk of ice materialized in the sky. The ice expanded rapidly, transforming into a colossal cannon statue, 1,000 meters tall. The cannon statue moved, its countless arms reaching towards the 100-meter-tall Dr. Stylish. Compared to the cannon, Dr. Stylish was like a mere child. A barrage of punches rained down on him. Dr. Stylish looked up in terror, his screams echoing through the battlefield. I still have so many human experiments to conduct. I can't die here. But his pleas were cut short as the cannon's fists obliterated him. When the dust settled, a massive crater, a kilometer wide, marked the spot where Dr. Stylish had stood. There was no trace of the giant, only some unidentifiable liquid remaining. The Night Raid members were awestruck by Roy's overwhelming power. The 1,000-meter-tall cannon, unleashing a relentless barrage of punches. It was a display of brutal beauty, leaving them speechless. Amazing. He's so strong. As expected of Roy-sama. Roy looked around, making sure everyone was safe. Is everyone all right? He asked. We're fine, they replied. Roy, that was incredible. Leon exclaimed, throwing her arms around Roy's neck. You were amazing. Ha, it was nothing, Roy said modestly, though a hint of pride flickered in his eyes. The others were speechless. 1,000-meter-tall ice giant was nothing? What would he consider a real challenge? Just then, a gust of wind swept through the area. A danger beast resembling a flying fish appeared in the distance. Look, what's that? Mine pointed towards the sky. Don't worry, it's Boss. She's back, Roy said with a smile. As the flying fish danger beast approached, they could see Najenda standing on its back, accompanied by a cloaked figure. Yo! It seems everyone is alright. Najenda greeted them, jumping off the danger beast with her companion. Boss, you're finally back. Welcome back. Boss, who's that with you? The Night Raid members chattered excitedly. Najenda smiled. Alright, let me introduce you. She pulled back the hood of the cloaked figure, revealing a man with blue hair, horns, and a neatly pressed white suit. This is the new Taigu I received from headquarters, Speed of Lightning, Susanoo. A humanoid Taigu? Amazing! Leon exclaimed. The others also stared at Susanoo in awe. Now, let's not get distracted. I received a warning from the Oracle at headquarters about a potential danger here, so I rushed back, Najenda explained, then looked around at the traces of battle. Her eyes widened as she saw the kilometer-wide crater. It seems the battle is over, but it must have been quite intense. The Night Raid members, understanding her unspoken question, looked at Roy. Don't worry, boss. We're all fine. That's all that matters, Roy said with a dismissive wave of his hand. Indeed, Najenda agreed, not pressing further. Since the enemy managed to find us here, this base has been compromised, she continued. So, everyone, pack your things. We're leaving tonight. Yes. They quickly gathered their belongings and boarded the flying fish danger beast, heading towards a new location. After traveling a safe distance, Najenda landed the danger beast. Boss, there's nothing here. Are we camping in the wilderness? No way. I want to take a hot bath. Me too. Mine and the others complained, seeing the barren surroundings. Don't worry, everyone. We'll have a new base soon, Najenda reassured them. I'll show you the special ability of my new Taigu. Special ability? The Night Raid members were confused. Roy sighed inwardly. He knew that Najenda's so-called special ability was just household chores. Susanoo, do your thing. Najenda commanded. Yes, ma'am. Susanoo replied, then got to work. He started by cutting down trees and building a house. Within a few hours, a large, comfortable house was constructed, much to everyone's amazement. If ordinary workers had been tasked with this, it would have taken them at least half a month. Susanoo then prepared a delicious meal in no time. The Night Raid members enjoyed the feast, then retired to their rooms for a good night's rest. Peaceful days returned. Roy spent his time with Kurome and Akame, hunting danger beasts and gathering ingredients. He also teased Mine and Chelsea, enjoyed lap pillows from Sheil and Leon, and generally reveled in the company of his new companions. Meanwhile, after Dr. Stylish's unauthorized attack, Esdeath discovered his disappearance the next day. She also found that some of the research materials in his lab were missing. Following the trail left by Dr. Stylish, she found Night Raid's hideout, but it was already abandoned. Esdeath returned to the capital, disappointed. However, she didn't know that not all of Dr. Stylish's research materials had been taken. Some of the remaining materials and danger beasts were now under the control of Sayura, the son of Minister Honest. Sayura was as cruel and depraved as his father, if not more so. He was also lecherous and arrogant. Using his father's influence, he committed all sorts of atrocities. He possessed the Taigu dimensional formation, Shambhala, a spatial teleportation device. After taking control of Dr. Stylish's remaining humanoid danger beasts, he sent them to attack merchants and civilians around the capital. His goal seemed to be to lure out Night Raid. A few days later, Najenda gathered everyone in the meeting room. Our target this time is a new type of danger beast that has been appearing around the capital, she announced. They mostly travel in packs, and some even possess intelligence. They're incredibly strong and attack everything in sight. Many martial artists who tried to challenge them have been defeated. Although the Jaegers and the Imperial soldiers are constantly fighting them, their numbers haven't decreased. So, our mission is to eliminate these danger beasts. The Night Raid members discussed the mission. Even the Empire's full force couldn't eliminate them. It doesn't seem like a trap, Mine commented thoughtfully. To put it bluntly, this mission is helping the Empire. Any objections? Najenda asked, lighting a cigarette. According to Boss, those danger beasts must be eliminated, Akame declared, readily accepting the mission. There's a special reason for this. Even if it means helping the Empire, it's necessary, Sheil agreed. Well, I don't mind helping the Empire, but I hope we don't encounter any Imperial soldiers, Leon said with a shrug. Everyone stared at her as if she were an idiot. We're night raid, Leon. Of course, we'll operate at night when the Imperial soldiers are resting, Negenda said, rolling her eyes. Leon finally understood and blushed in embarrassment. Sigh, risking our lives to eliminate danger beasts in the capital? Shouldn't we leave this to the Jaegers? You guys are so naive, Chelsea commented, leaning against the wall with her arms crossed. Everyone was silent for a moment. Chelsea, you're wrong. You're just lacking in vision, Roy said with a chuckle. Eh? Chelsea looked at him, confused. Who said this mission is about helping the Empire? Roy smirked. The Empire will be ours soon. Eliminating these danger beasts is helping ourselves. The Night Raid members' eyes widened in realization. Even Negenda hadn't considered that. So, helping the Empire is helping ourselves? Chelsea asked, understanding dawning on her. Exactly, Roy confirmed with a nod. Since everyone agrees, let's form teams and begin the mission, Negenda declared. Sheil and mine, Akame and Leon, Lubbock and Bullet, Roy and Seiko. Wait. Kurome suddenly interrupted. I want to be on Oniai-chan's team, she declared, clinging to Roy's arm. Kurome, don't be so selfish, Akame scolded. I don't care. I want to be with Oniai-chan, Kurome insisted. Let her be on my team, Roy said, gently patting Kurome's head. After becoming a devil, Kurome had become quite attached to him, even more so than to Akame. Fine, Negenda sighed. Then Chelsea, you'll be with Seiko. Yes. Negenda assigned them their areas of operation. That night, Night Raid set out. To save time, Roy and Kurome spread their devil wings and flew to their designated area. They landed on a barren, rocky mountaintop. This should be the place, Roy said, his senses detecting the presence of several danger beasts. They're over there, Kurome. Let's go. Yes, Oniai-chan. They quickly reached the danger beasts. There were 3 reptilian creatures. Oniai-chan, leave them to me, Kurome declared, drawing her Taigu. Okay, good luck, Roy encouraged her with a smile. Kurome smiled back and charged towards the danger beasts. The 3 creatures were quite strong, possessing the power of middle-class devils, but they were no match for Kurome. Within moments, she had slain them all. Just then, a flying-type danger beast approached from the distance. It's Esdeath. Roy recognized her instantly. Esdeath also noticed them and steered the danger beast towards them. He felt a headache coming on. How was he going to explain this? Well, I guess it's time to come clean. Boom! As the flying danger beast reached them, Esdeath jumped off, landing with a powerful impact that created a large crater. Roy, I've finally found you again. I'm not dreaming, am I? Esdeath exclaimed, her cheeks flushed as she stared at him. She rushed towards Roy and embraced him tightly. Roy awkwardly patted her back. Kurome, however, wasn't happy about her brother being hugged by another girl. Let go of Oniai-chan, she shouted, pushing Esdeath away and standing protectively before Roy. Kurome, Roy is my beloved. I won't hold back, even against you, Esdeath declared coldly, drawing her sword and pointing it at Kurome. Humph. I won't let you have Oniai-chan. Kurome retorted, drawing her Taigu. Her strength was now comparable to Esdeath's. She wasn't afraid. A tense standoff ensued. Roy quickly intervened. Esdeath, calm down. And Kurome, you too. He pulled Kurome behind him, and she obediently sheathed her Taigu. Esdeath also calmed down. Roy, Kurome, why did you leave the Empire? She asked, wanting to understand their sudden departure. Haven't you figured it out yet, Esdeath? We're Night Raid, Roy revealed. I only joined the Jaegers to bring Kurome back. I see. Night Raid. Esdeath murmured, her expression hidden by her hat. Then, she looked up with a smile. Well then, I have no choice but to capture you. She moved to attack. Wait, Esdeath. Roy stopped her. I know I can't convince you to leave the Empire. But for those of us who believe in strength, it doesn't matter who we serve, right? Esdeath nodded in agreement. She was a general in the Empire simply because she enjoyed the thrill of battle. In that case, let's have a battle tomorrow, right here. Night Raid versus the Jaegers, Roy proposed. If we win, you'll submit to me. And if you win, we'll submit to you. How does that sound? Esdeath grinned confidently. Very well. I accept your challenge. She was incredibly confident in her strength. Moreover, she believed in survival of the fittest, the strong ruling the weak. This kind of battle was exactly what she desired. Roy had proposed this challenge because he didn't want to waste any more time. His mission in this world was almost complete. Chapter 86, The Final Battle. Just then, Esdeath suddenly pointed her sword towards a nearby pile of rubble. Whoever's hiding there, come out now, or I'll attack. Roy and Kurome also turned their attention to the rubble. They, too, sensed someone hiding there. Impressive. I thought I was well hidden. As expected of the Empire's strongest, a man's voice said as he emerged from the rubble. He wore a hooded coat, his face obscured in the shadows. He hadn't planned to get involved in their conflict. In his mind, having Esdeath eliminate Night Raid would be beneficial. He didn't consider the possibility of Night Raid winning. Now that you know our secret, you're not going anywhere, Roy declared coldly. He instantly recognized the man as Sayura, the son of Minister Honest. Roy had already marked this man for death. In the manga, Sayura was a depraved individual who had orchestrated the assault and murder of Bolza's wife and daughter while they were visiting Bolza's grave. He had also set his sights on Kurome. And to top it off, he was the son of the corrupt Minister Honest. For all these reasons, Sayura was a dead man walking. Oh? Sayura sneered, looking down at Roy with disdain. You think you can stop me? Taigu, Shambhala, activate, he shouted. A purple magic circle appeared beneath their feet. Trying to teleport us away? How amusing. Roy scoffed. He knew teleportation magic. Even if Sayura managed to teleport them, Roy could easily teleport back. Moreover, too slow. Roy swiftly scooped up Esdeath and Kurome, carrying them out of the magic circle's range before it could activate. Shambhala's activation time was too slow. Although it only took 2 or 3 seconds to teleport, it was still an eternity in a battle against Roy. Esdeath had fallen victim to it in the original story only because she was unfamiliar with the Taigu's ability. Sayura was taken aback, but Roy didn't hesitate. He appeared before Sayura in a flash. His ice rose sword sliced through Sayura's neck without mercy. Sayura gasped, his eyes wide with disbelief as his body was instantly encased in ice. Esdeath stared at Roy's ice rose sword, a mixture of surprise and excitement in her eyes. He could control ice, just like her. She had chosen well. Her gaze intensified. Sensing her intense stare, Roy turned to her. Esdeath, you can go back now. No matter the outcome tomorrow, we'll be together, won't we? He said, his voice filled with confidence and a hint of tenderness. Esdeath smiled and nodded. Indeed. She summoned her dragon danger beast and flew away. Roy and Kurome returned to the Night Raid hideout. When the other Night Raid members returned, Roy informed them of his agreement with Esdeath. They were stunned. Najenda frowned. She knew Esdeath's strength better than anyone. A direct confrontation with Esdeath was a risky move, in her opinion. However, before she had returned from headquarters, she had received orders to respect Roy's decisions. This put her in a difficult position. Of course, those orders were Roy's doing. He had been controlling the leader of the Revolutionary Army from the start. When he first arrived in this world, he had set his sights on the Taigu. Taigu were powerful weapons. Esdeath's Taigu, Demon's Extract, and Akame's Taigu, One-Cut Killer. Mirasame were comparable to sacred gears, and the other Taigu were also on par with powerful artifacts. Roy had taken control of the revolutionary army to turn this world into his own domain. Once he figured out how to create Taigu, he would have access to an endless supply of powerful weapons. This would be crucial for the development of the Lucifuge clan. In the end, Negenda agreed to Roy's plan. The other Night Raid members didn't object either. They knew how strong Roy was. And even without Roy, Akame and Kurome together could potentially defeat Esdeath. The next day, Night Raid set off for the designated battleground. Esdeath and the remaining Jaegers were already waiting for them. The Jaegers were a sorry sight now. Serio and Dr. Stylish were dead, and Kurome had defected to Roy's side. Only Wave, Run, and Bulls remained. Night Raid, on the other hand, was at full strength. Not only were all the original members alive, but they also had Kurome, Siko, and Roy. Even Negenda had joined them. "Yo, Esdeath, you're early," Roy greeted her with a smile. "I couldn't wait to defeat you and keep you by my side forever," Esdeath replied, her cheeks slightly flushed. "Oh? You're quite confident, Esdeath. Let's discuss the rules then. Since you only have 3 members, I'll also send out 3. We'll have one-on-one matches. And finally, we'll have our duel. How does that sound?" "No problem," Esdeath agreed without hesitation. To her, the outcome of the matches between their subordinates didn't matter. Her battle against Roy would decide the victor. But some appetizers before the main course wouldn't hurt. "Bulls, you go first," Esdeath instructed. "Yes, Captain." Bulls stepped forward. His Taigu was Rubicant, a flamethrower-like weapon that could unleash inextinguishable flames and even launch magma. Its trump card was a large-scale self-destruction, incredibly powerful but also destructive to the Taigu itself. "Who wants to fight him?" Roy asked the Night Raid members. "I'll do it," Akame declared, interrupting Bullet. Bullet shrugged and stepped back. "All right, Akame, you're up." "Remember, no killing," Roy reminded her. He didn't dislike Bulls. He wasn't inherently evil, so there was no need to kill him. Akame nodded and stepped forward. Perhaps it was fate, but Akame, just like in the original story, faced Bulls. However, this time, Bulls didn't have Kurome's corpse puppets to support him, and Akame was far stronger than before. The outcome was predictable. Within moments, the match was decided. Akame's blade was at Bulls' neck. A slight nick, and Bulls would be dead. "You win the first round." "Wave, you're next," Esdeath said calmly, unfazed by Bulls' swift defeat. "Yes, Captain." Wave acknowledged. Wave's personality was similar to Tatsumi's, and his Taigu was a replica of Incursio called Grand Chariot. Although its performance was inferior to Incursio, Wave's strength was recognized by Esdeath. Seeing Wave step forward, Bullet immediately volunteered. "I'll take this one." "Go ahead," Roy nodded. Both of them wielded armor-type Taigu, and Grand Chariot was modeled after Incursio. This was a battle of fate. However, in terms of raw power, Bullet had the edge. Wave was still young, and Incursio's performance surpassed that of Grand Chariot. As expected, Bullet emerged victorious. Run, the last remaining member of the Jaegers, stepped forward. "Then I'll be the next challenger," he declared, activating his Taiga and taking to the sky. His Taigu was Mestima, a pair of white wings that allowed him to fly and launch feather projectiles. Its trump card could reflect projectiles. With his aerial advantage, it was difficult for ordinary fighters to reach him. "I'll handle this. He's in the air." "Only I can reach him," Mine declared confidently, holding up her Taigu, Pumpkin. Roy, however, shook his head. "No, Mine. His Taigu can deflect ranged attacks. It completely counters your Pumpkin." Mine was unconvinced. "Don't worry. We'll leave this to Kurome," Roy said, patting Mine's head and turning to Kurome. "Kurome, you're up." Yes, Oni-chan. Kurome replied happily. She was eager to help Roy. She activated her devil wings and took to the sky. Compared to Run's Taigu, her devil wings were far more agile. Without his aerial advantage, Run was quickly defeated. Clap, clap, clap. What an exciting battle. This is far more entertaining than the martial arts tournament, Esdeath praised with a smile. Now, it's our turn. Roy stepped forward with a grin. Go, Roy. Roy, defeat her. Oni-chan, you can do it. The Night Raid members cheered for him. Then let me experience your strength, Esdeath said, drawing her rapier and pointing it at Roy. Roy summoned his Ice Rose sword. In the next instant, they both vanished. Clang! 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 Clash! 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 The two swordsmen clashed, their blades a blur of motion. Esdeath's swordsmanship was honed on countless battlefields, a purely lethal style with immense power behind every strike. Roy's swordsmanship, however, was a culmination of various styles, incorporating the strengths of each. His movements were efficient and precise, each strike carrying devastating force. His mastery of breathing styles further enhanced his swordsmanship. Their intense duel amazed the onlookers. They're so strong. I can't even see their movements. Their swordsmanship alone is incredible, and they haven't even used their Taigu yet. If Roy uses that ice giant technique from before, he should be able to defeat Esdeath. They both use ice. Esdeath, realizing that her swordsmanship was no match for Roy's, leaped back, creating distance between them. Your swordsmanship is truly impressive, Roy, she admitted with admiration. Yours isn't bad either, Esdeath-san, Roy replied with a smile. Then how about this? Esdeath waved her hand, conjuring countless ice spikes that shot towards Roy. Roy chuckled. I can do that too. Ice breathing, first form, flocking ice blades. He swung his sword, unleashing a barrage of ice projectiles that flew towards the incoming spikes like a flock of birds. The ice projectiles and spikes collided. A cloud of ice mist filled the air, but neither attack could overcome the other. Esdeath leaped into the air and snapped her fingers. A massive ice sphere, about 100 meters in diameter, materialized above her, blocking the sunlight. She then sent the ice sphere hurtling towards Roy like a meteor. Roy smirked and raised his hand. Secret art, Twilight Snowfall. The ground shook. A massive ice mountain erupted from the earth, intercepting the falling ice sphere. Crack! 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 The tip of the ice mountain pierced the sphere, shattering it into countless pieces. Esdeath then conjured a massive ice pillar and thrust it towards the ice mountain. However, the ice pillar shattered upon contact with the mountain, like an egg hitting a rock. Esdeath's ice was no match for Roy's. It was on a completely different level. Esdeath landed, realizing that her ice attacks were ineffective. Roy, you truly are strong. It seems I'll have to use my trump card. I developed this technique just for you, she declared, her eyes filled with determination. This was the first time Esdeath had encountered an opponent who could match her strength. Neither her swordsmanship nor her ice attacks could defeat Roy. However, during their first encounter, frustrated by her inability to catch Roy, she had developed a new technique. It was Mahapadma. In the original story, Esdeath had created this technique to prevent Tatsumi from escaping. This time, she had developed it to capture Roy. Roy, hearing her words, understood her intentions and prepared himself. He knew about Mahapadma. It wouldn't be difficult to counter it. Esdeath's Mahapadma could freeze time and space within a radius of several dozen meters. He could simply escape the area of effect before she activated it, just like Akame had done in the original story. Or he could freeze himself. He estimated that Mahapadma's time-stop effect lasted for less than 5 seconds. So, as long as he could withstand Esdeath's attacks for 5 seconds, he would be fine. Roy chose the second option. As Esdeath charged towards him, Roy smirked and uttered a few words. Secret art, Millennium Ice Prison. This technique was originally meant to trap others, but this time, he used it on himself. He was instantly encased in ice. Esdeath activated her trump card. Mahapadma. Time and space froze. All movement ceased. Even the birds flying in the sky were frozen mid-flight. Only Esdeath could move freely. However, seeing Roy encased in ice, she was momentarily stunned. She had to break the ice to harm him. Realizing this, she didn't waste any time. She conjured an ice spear and thrust it towards Roy. But it was useless. The ice spear shattered upon contact with Roy's ice, like an egg hitting a rock. Esdeath frowned. But before she could think of another solution, Mahapadma's time stop effect wore off. Roy, though unsure what had just happened, knew that Esdeath's trump card had been ineffective against him. "How did you counter my technique, Roy?" Esdeath asked, confused. This was the first time she had used Mahapadma, yet Roy had encased himself in ice beforehand, as if he had anticipated her move. And Mahapadma could only be used once a day. Roy deactivated his ice prison and chuckled at her question. Could he tell her that he knew about her technique beforehand? "I just had a feeling," he replied with a shrug. "I didn't know what was going to happen, but I sensed danger." "A feeling, huh?" Esdeath wasn't satisfied with his answer, but there was no other explanation. "Since your trump card couldn't defeat me, does that mean I win?" Roy asked with a smile. "Humph. If you want me to admit defeat, you'll have to beat me," Esdeath declared, her pride unwavering as she pointed her sword at Roy. It seemed he had to completely defeat her to conquer this woman. "Very well," Roy sighed dramatically. He held out his hand. Secret art, Ice 9 Dragons. 9 massive ice dragons materialized in the sky, roaring silently. They encircled Esdeath, ready to strike. Chapter 87, Overthrowing the Empire. Esdeath, far from being afraid, was excited by the sight of Roy's ice dragons. "Ha!" she shouted, slamming her hand onto the ground. Thousands of massive ice pillars erupted from the earth, reaching towards the 9 ice dragons. However, the dragons effortlessly shattered the ice pillars with their claws and tails. The 9 dragons converged. In the next moment, a 1,000-meter-tall ice mountain formed from the intertwined bodies of the dragons, encased Esdeath within. Even with her own ice powers, Esdeath couldn't break free from this icy prison. Amazing! Another new technique. How many more does Roy have? Esdeath has been completely defeated. He's too strong. Esdeath couldn't even resist. The Night Raid members stared at the towering ice mountain in awe. Najenda was the most shocked of all. Although Roy had proven himself to be quite capable since joining Night Raid, she couldn't believe that even Esdeath, who she considered invincible, was no match for him. She finally understood why headquarters had ordered her to follow Roy's lead. Roy approached the ice mountain, a triumphant smile on his face. He snapped his fingers. The ice mountain instantly shattered into a shower of ice crystals, revealing the frozen Esdeath within. Roy caught her before she could fall. Esdeath slowly opened her eyes. She looked at Roy, her gaze filled with admiration, and gently caressed his cheek. "That was a beautiful technique, Roy," she said with a smile. "Want to learn it?" "I can teach you," he offered. Esdeath's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Of course. After all, we'll be facing even stronger enemies in the future." Esdeath's excitement grew. "That's wonderful." She was a woman who loved battle and the thrill of the hunt. The prospect of facing opponents stronger than Roy intrigued her. "Let's take care of things here first," Roy said, helping Esdeath to her feet. He then turned to Wave, Run, and Bulls. "Come here, you 3. The 3 Jaegers approached cautiously. "Captain?" Wave looked at Esdeath questioningly. "As you can see, I've been defeated." "So?" Esdeath began, her voice calm and composed. "From now on, you will follow Roy's commands. After all, it's only natural for the strong to rule the weak." Wave, Run, and Bulls exchanged glances. They knew their captain's personality. and they couldn't defeat Roy, let alone escape from him. They turned to Roy, their expressions uncertain. "Don't worry," Roy reassured them with a smile. "I don't need you to do anything against the Empire. Just stay at the Night Raid hideout for a few days. Once everything is settled, you can go back to your lives." The three Jaegers were confused. "The Revolutionary Army will launch an attack on the Empire in a few days," Roy explained. "Once the Empire falls and peace is restored, you can return to your duties. You're not evil people. The new Empire will still need your strength." They remained silent, considering his words. "Of course, you can also bring your loved ones to the Night Raid hideout for safety," Roy added. "That's all I have to say. Think it over." Roy then ignored them and turned to Najenda. Najenda summoned her flying danger beast. The Night Raid members, along with the Jaegers, returned to their hideout. Back at the base, Roy immediately opened a portal to the Revolutionary Army headquarters. He instructed the leader to gather their forces and launch an attack on the capital the next day. The following day, Roy led Night Raid and Esdeath to the Imperial Palace. Wave, Run, and Bulls remained at the Night Raid hideout. Although no one guarded them, they didn't dare to leave. Even if they did, they couldn't stop Night Raid's attack. Bulls, however, had brought his wife and daughter to the hideout for safety. Inside the Imperial Palace, the Night Raid members marched through the halls without any attempt at concealment. The soldiers, seeing Esdeath, didn't dare to stop them. But there was one exception. "General Esdeath, who are these people?" A man blocked their path. It was General Budo, the leader of the Imperial Guard. "General Budo, the fall of the Empire is inevitable. I advise you to step aside," Esdeath said with a sneer. Budo's expression hardened as he recognized several wanted members of Night Raid among the group. "General Esdeath, have you betrayed the Empire?" he demanded. "The weak submit to the strong." "It's only natural," Esdeath replied calmly. "Esdeath, don't waste your breath on him," Roy interjected, cutting off Budo's retort. "General Budo, the Empire is finished. You have two choices. First, continue to resist and be killed by me. Second, pretend nothing has happened. It's just a change of emperor. You can remain a general in the new empire. Choose." Budo was silent for a moment. "I won't let you pass." As expected, Roy sighed. Budo was known for his stubbornness. He adhered to the old ways, believing that military officials shouldn't interfere in politics. Although he was aware of the corruption within the government, he hadn't taken any action. If he were willing to surrender, the empire wouldn't be in this state. "Esdeath, I'll leave him to you," Roy said. "Leave it to me. I've been wanting to fight General Budo, the other strongest in the capital, for a long time," Esdeath replied, drawing her rapier and pointing it at Budo. "It seems a battle is unavoidable," Budo said, activating his Taigu, Thunder God's Rage, a Dramalek. The two powerful warriors clashed. Roy and the others continued towards the throne room. "Who are you?" The guards outside the throne room surrounded them. The Night Raid members attacked without hesitation. The endless waves of soldiers couldn't stop their advance. The ministers and officials inside the throne room panicked. "A rebellion? Have I, as emperor, made a mistake?" The young emperor, still a child, looked around in disbelief. "No, your majesty. Even after losing your parents, you have ruled wisely," Prime Minister Honest declared. "And I have always been by your side. You've made no mistakes." The emperor didn't know that his parents had been murdered by Prime Minister Honest. "That's true. You've always been with me." "You wouldn't lie to me," the emperor said, nodding. The ministers and officials remained silent, witnessing the blatant manipulation. "Your Majesty, the rebels have deceived the people. We must show them the consequences of their actions," Prime Minister Honest declared. "Show them your imperial might and quell this rebellion." He was trying to convince the emperor to activate the supreme Taigu, Shikudazer. The emperor nodded and stood up, ready to activate the Taigu. Just then, Roy and the others stormed into the throne room. "Prime Minister Honest, you're going to die," Akame declared, charging towards the minister, ignoring the other officials. However, as she was about to strike, she was thrown back by an invisible barrier. "Akame, come back," Roy called out. Akame, unable to harm Prime Minister Honest, retreated. "Prime Minister Honest possesses a Taigu that can destroy other Taigu. We'll leave him to Seiko," Roy announced. "What? Prime Minister Honest has a Taigu?" Mine exclaimed in surprise. "A Taigu that can destroy other Taigu. It's good that we know now. Otherwise, the consequences could have been disastrous," Leon said grimly. In the original story, Leon had been unaware of Prime Minister Honest's Taigu ability. She had been caught off guard, her Taiga destroyed, and she had been shot multiple times. Although she had managed to kill Prime Minister Honest in the end, she had succumbed to her injuries due to the loss of her Taigu's regenerative abilities. "Ha ha ha, the Supreme Taigu has been activated. This is the end for you rebels," Prime Minister Honest suddenly cackled. The barrier had even blocked Akame's attack, who was at the peak of high-class devil level. It seemed the Supreme Taigu possessed at least ultimate class power. "Your Majesty, show these foolish rebels the hammer of justice," Prime Minister Honest urged the Emperor. "I am the Emperor of the Empire," the young Emperor declared without hesitation. These were the activation words for the Supreme Taigu. The ground trembled. The officials in the throne room stumbled and fell. A massive object began to emerge from beneath the floor. "Everyone, get out of here!" Roy shouted, leading them out of the throne room. From outside, they could see a colossal suit of armor rising from the ground. The throne room was instantly destroyed. Most of the officials inside were killed. When the Supreme Taigu fully emerged, they could finally see its true form. It was a gigantic suit of armor, 1,000 meters tall, its presence radiating an oppressive aura. What is that? It's like a monster. Is that the legendary Supreme Taigu? I can't believe it actually exists. The Night Raid members stared at the colossal giant in shock. But they weren't afraid. They had seen a giant of this scale before. Roy's Ice 1000 armed cannon was just as massive. So this is a ultimate class Taigu, Roy thought. Such a powerful Taigu. It consumed a lot of stamina to use, but the frail young emperor didn't have much stamina to spare. Yet, even so, in the original story, the emperor had managed to unleash its devastating power. Just then, the emperor's voice boomed from within the Supreme Taigu. "This empire, passed down through generations, is the order of God. To rebel against God is blasphemy." A red light emanated from the gem on the Taigu's forehead. A crimson laser beam shot down towards Roy and the others. Secret art. Cross shield. Roy raised his hand and conjured a massive ice shield. Boom! The laser beam struck the ice shield. The ground shook, and debris flew everywhere. But the ice shield remained intact. "Its power is horrible," Najenda muttered, her expression grim. "How are we supposed to defeat it?" Mine felt a sense of helplessness. "Leave this to me. You deal with the minister and the imperial soldiers," Roy instructed. Yes. They had no objections. Only Roy could handle such a colossal opponent. The obvious weakness shown in the original story didn't exist. In the original story, Tatsumi had struck the Supreme Taigu in the abdomen and declared it a weak point. But who would design armor with a weak point in such an easily targeted location? The Night Raid members dispersed to fight the Imperial soldiers and Prime Minister Honest. Roy faced the Supreme Taigu alone. He spread his devil wings and soared into the sky. Seeing him approach, the Emperor roared again. Ha! The red light on the Taigu's forehead gathered once more, and another laser beam shot towards Roy. This time, Roy didn't try to block it. He simply dodged. Boom! The laser beam missed Roy and struck the city below, creating a massive explosion. A mushroom cloud rose into the sky. Everything in the vicinity was instantly obliterated, countless lives lost. He couldn't use the Ice 1000 armed cannon. That would destroy the Taigu. He had to freeze it. Roy didn't waste any time. He raised his hand. Secret art, Ice 9 dragons. 9 massive ice dragons materialized in the sky, roaring silently as they charged towards the Supreme Taigu. The Emperor panicked at the sight of the ice dragons. "Stay away," he screamed. The Supreme Taigu fired a massive laser beam from its mouth and dozens of smaller beams from its shoulders. The beams struck the ice dragons. Boom! 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 The ice dragons shattered. Just as the Emperor breathed a sigh of relief, the ice dragons began to regenerate. They were made of ice. Even if shattered, they could easily reform. The 9 ice dragons converged on the Supreme Taigu. Crack! 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 The sound of freezing echoed through the air. Within moments, the Supreme Taigu was encased in ice. The 9 ice dragons coiled around it, immobilizing it completely. Inside the Taigu, the Emperor, exhausted from overusing its power, fainted. With the Supreme Taigu neutralized, the rest of the capital had also fallen. Prime Minister Honest had been slain by Siko. He died without understanding why his Taigu hadn't destroyed her weapon. He didn't know that Siko hadn't used her Taigu at all. By evening, the entire capital was under their control. Roy sat on the throne in the Imperial Palace. "Roy, get down from there. That's the Emperor's throne," Mine exclaimed, flustered. Now that the Empire had fallen, that seat belonged to their leader. "What's the big deal?" Roy shrugged, unconcerned. "By the way, Mine, do you want to be my Empress?" he asked with a playful grin. Mine blushed furiously. "What are you talking about?" Roy chuckled at her reaction. He then turned to Leon. "Leon, now that the war is over, you're not going back to the slums, are you?" Leon pondered his question. "Well, we are assassins," she said with a sigh. Her words highlighted the harsh reality of their situation. Once the new empire was established, Night Raid would be disbanded. And the assassins of Night Raid would be seen as a threat to the new regime. A ruthless emperor might even eliminate them. "Then how about becoming my empress?" Roy offered. Roy, are you declaring yourself the new emperor?" Leon asked, sitting beside him and slinging an arm around his neck. "If that's the case, becoming your empress doesn't sound too bad." "Then it's settled," Roy said, wrapping an arm around her waist. Leon froze, her body stiffening. Despite her usual carefree demeanor, she was still just a young girl. Chapter 88, Securing the Empresses. "So, Chelsea, how about you? Want to be my consort?" Roy asked, turning his attention to her. Chelsea blushed. "Why are you asking me that?" "Do you really want to build a harem?" she retorted, giving him a disapproving look. If she wasn't mistaken, she and Mine were the only ones who hadn't agreed to become his consorts yet. Sheil, Akame, Kurome, and Leon had already accepted his offer. Just then, a group of people entered the hall. Leon's eyes widened in alarm, and she quickly stepped aside, motioning for Roy to get off the throne. Roy, amused by her reaction, simply shifted into a more comfortable position and continued to lounge on the throne. The leader of the Revolutionary Army, accompanied by Najenda and a few others, approached Roy. The Night Raid members watched nervously. Then, thud! The Revolutionary Army leader knelt before Roy. "Greetings, boss," he declared respectfully. "What?" Everyone was stunned. The Supreme Commander of the Revolutionary Army was bowing before a teenager and calling him boss? "Everyone, kneel," the leader barked at his subordinates. Despite their confusion, Najenda and the other soldiers obeyed and knelt. "Arise," Roy said casually, waving his hand dismissively. "How is the situation in the capital?" "Boss, the capital is under our complete control. All those who resisted have been eliminated." "Good. Pacify the people and prepare for the coronation ceremony in a few days. Yes, boss. Anything else? Roy asked. Boss, what should we do with the young emperor? The leader asked cautiously. That's up to you. Just make sure I don't see him again. Understood, boss. You're dismissed. Roy waved them away. Yes, boss. The Revolutionary Army leader and his entourage left the hall. The Night Raid members stared at Roy in disbelief. What? The leader called Roy boss? Chelsea stammered, her jaw dropping and her lollipop falling to the ground. What's going on? Akame asked, equally confused. The leader of the Revolutionary Army is just a pawn of mine, Roy explained with a chuckle, enjoying their shocked reactions. So? Roy, your offer to make me your consort, was that serious? Leon asked, sliding onto the seat beside him, her eyes sparkling with interest. Of course it was. I joined Night Raid for all of you, Roy replied, his gaze sweeping over the girls. His words touched their hearts. Someone had actually risked his life and joined a group of assassins for their sake. They couldn't help but wonder if they would even be alive without Roy. Sheil, for one, wouldn't have been resurrected. And the rest of them would have likely suffered heavy casualties in their fight to overthrow the Empire. Well, then I suppose I'll accept your offer, Chelsea said, blushing. She had been born into common family and had even worked for the Empire. She had fantasized about becoming the Emperor's consort. And she already had feelings for Roy, further amplified by his selfless actions in joining Night Raid. It was no surprise that she agreed. This cliché tactic might be laughable in the modern world, but it seemed quite effective in this situation. What about you, mine? Roy asked, turning his attention to her. I. Mine stammered, her face flushed. She undoubtedly liked Roy. But her tsundere nature made it difficult for her to confess in front of everyone. Why does every confession have to be in front of an audience? She lamented internally. Seeing her hesitation, Roy approached her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Mine, don't you like me? He asked softly. Of course I do, you idiot. But do you have to make me say it in front of everyone? Mine cried, burying her face in his chest. The other girls smiled, happy for Mine. They knew how difficult it was for her to express her feelings honestly. I'm sorry, Mine. It's my fault, Roy apologized, patting her back. Fine. I forgive you, Mine replied, finally smiling through her tears. Kurome tugged at Roy's sleeve. Oni-chan, what about me? I want to be your consort too, she said shyly. Roy paused, then patted her head. Don't worry, Kurome. You're already my servant. I won't forget about you. Akame blushed at his words. Roy then proceeded to form contracts with the girls. Mine, as a long-range ADC, consumed a lot of mana. The rook and knight pieces weren't suitable for her. The bishop piece was the best fit. Chelsea wasn't suited for frontline combat, so he gave her a pawn piece. And finally, the main event, Esdeath. She was destined to be his queen. After Esdeath's transformation, her strength soared to ultimate class, an incredible feat. But it wasn't surprising, considering she was already at the peak of high-class devil. A few days later, Roy was officially crowned emperor. Even he hadn't expected to become an emperor, but he wasn't particularly interested in the position itself. He then declared the Night Raid girls and Esdeath his consorts. With the immediate matters settled, Roy didn't rush to leave this world. He used his knowledge to implement reforms, improving the lives of the people and ensuring they no longer suffered from hunger and poverty. He then dispatched Esdeath to the western regions to quell the unrest among the minority tribes. Mine, who was from the western border region, had been discriminated against for being a half-breed since childhood. She had dreamed of a new empire where such discrimination would be eradicated. Therefore, Roy sent Esdeath to conquer the western tribes and integrate them into the empire. Of course, this was also part of Roy's plan to unify the entire world. To achieve this, he needed to conquer the southern and northern tribes as well. He sent an agenda and night raid to the south. And he personally led an army to the north. Any tribe that resisted was crushed. Within a month, all 3 regions were under his control. Roy then ordered the men from the conquered tribes to relocate to the capital for work. He also sent a group of citizens from the capital to the newly acquired territories. This integration would ensure that within 100 years, there would be no more divisions between different races. During this time, Roy finally discovered the method for creating Taigu. The first thing he did was modify the supreme Taigu, Shikudazer. Previously, only those with the bloodline of the former emperor could use it. Even Roy couldn't force it to activate. But after his modifications, anyone could use it. Roy then entrusted an agenda and the former revolutionary army leader with governing the empire and tasked them with producing more Taigu. He then left the world of Akame Ga with his consorts and a collection of Taigu. After his departure, the world continued to function smoothly under Najenda and the former leader's rule. They followed Roy's instructions diligently. Roy wasn't worried about the empire's future. After all, he could return anytime. Chapter 89, Return to DxD, New Trouble. Highschool DxD World, Roy's Castle. Rias, fresh from her bath, arrived at Roy's room. She froze as she opened the door. Several unfamiliar girls were inside. Rias puffed out her cheeks, a bit annoyed. "Roy, what's going on?" she demanded, pointing at the girls. Roy hadn't expected her to come in so soon after he returned. "Your Majesty, who is she?" Mine asked suspiciously, eyeing Rias. "Ahem, she's my queen consort," Roy replied. "Eh? No wonder your Majesty hasn't chosen a queen consort yet. You already have one," Leon exclaimed, though she didn't consider herself a candidate for the position. Among them, the only one who could truly be Roy's queen consort was Esdeath, the strongest. "Queen consort? Your Majesty? What are you talking about?" Rias was confused. "Don't worry, we'll explain everything outside." Roy led the girls to the living room and called for Saya, Kane, and the others. Saya and the others were used to seeing new faces among them. Only Rias, Akino, and Kaneko were confused. Roy introduced everyone. The night raid girls didn't mind that Roy had so many consorts. After all, he had been an emperor. It was normal for an emperor to have a harem. Roy then explained everything to Rias, Akino, and Kaneko. Upon learning that Roy had been to another world and recruited more servants, Rias was upset. Of course, she wasn't upset that he had more servants. As a devil noble, having multiple partners was normal. What truly bothered her was that he hadn't taken her with him. Ever since their trip to the Pokemon world, Rias had suspected that Roy's servants might be from other worlds. She only had Akino, Kaneko, and Kyomebe as her servants. And this time, he hadn't even taken her along. Weren't her servants his as well? Looking at Esdeath, Akame, Kurome, and the others, she realized she couldn't sense their strength. This made her even more envious. Rias pinched Roy's side, her arms crossed, and turned her head away, feigning anger. "Rias, don't be mad," Roy pleaded, wrapping an arm around her. "I'll take you with me next time, okay?" "Really?" Rias turned to him with a hopeful expression. "Of course. And I've already found 2 excellent candidates for your peerage," Roy assured her. "Really? Where are they?" Rias's eyes lit up with excitement. "Those 2 idiots who left earlier." "Huh? You mean Zenobia and Irina Shidu?" Rias asked in confusion. "Yes. But they're from the church. How could they become devils?" "I have a plan." "Don't worry," Roy said with a mysterious smile. All right," Rias reluctantly agreed. Roy was relieved that she wasn't angry anymore. He then turned to the night raid girls. "Let me show you to your rooms." "Oh, and you don't have to call me Your Majesty here." "Just Roy is fine." The girls nodded. The next day, Roy had Chelsea follow Zenobia and Irina. He knew those two would encounter Kokobile soon. Chelsea, with her ability to change her appearance, was the perfect candidate for the task. Roy stayed at the castle, teaching the night raid girls about modern life and breathing styles. They would be facing Kokobile soon, so he had asked Sona to excuse them from school. He also had to distribute the Taigu he had brought back. After his modifications, the Taiga no longer had any usage restrictions, so he brought out all of them except for the Supreme Taigu. In the living room, Ria stared at the collection of Taigu in awe. "Are these all sacred gears?" she asked, sensing their immense power. These are called Taigu. They're spoils of war from my trip. They're just as powerful as sacred gears, Roy explained with a grin. He had brought back 8 Taigu. Spectator, Belvok, Scream, Black Marlin, Hecatonkires, Perfector, Shambhala, and Adramelech. They had all been collected from defeated enemies and were currently unused. Roy explained the abilities of each Taigu. The girls looked at the Taigu on the table, but none of them made a move to take one. No one wants one?" Roy asked, confused. Shizuka was the first to step forward and pick up Perfector. "I burned myself while making soup today." "I'll take these gloves," she said, putting on the gloves and heading towards the kitchen, seemingly eager to test them out. Roy's lips twitched. Yuriko then took the Black Marlin Taigu. This ring could manipulate any liquid it touched, which would be useful in conjunction with her water magic. Alice chose Hecatonkires, the humanoid Taigu. But no one wanted the remaining Taigu. "No one wants these?" Roy asked, puzzled. "They're ugly." Saya blurted out the reason. Adramelech was a pair of bulky gauntlets, and Spectator would look strange on a girl's forehead. And Scream's trump card transformed the user into a muscular, monstrous form. If a girl used it, the image was too horrifying to imagine. The other Taigu were simply unsuitable for them. Kane and the others were swordswomen and didn't need these Taigu. Roy shrugged. He hadn't considered that. Just then, Chelsea contacted him through their communication devices. "Roy, those 2 girls are begging on the streets. It seems they have no money for food. What should we do?" Roy sighed. Those 2 were truly clueless. In the original story, they had spent all their money on a painting of a saint and ended up begging for food. He hadn't expected them to repeat the same mistake. "Give them some money," Roy instructed. "Yes." Chelsea replied and carried out his orders. That night, Chelsea contacted him again. "Roy, they're heading towards an abandoned factory." "It gives me a bad feeling," she reported, her voice filled with apprehension. "Oh? It seems they've found a lead," Roy mused. If he wasn't mistaken, the 3 stolen Excalibur swords were there. That must be why Chelsea felt uneasy. He wasn't sure if Kokobile would be there as well. But Roy wasn't one to wait passively. He preferred to take the initiative. "Chelsea, stop them. Those 2 are no match for the Excalibur swords." "Yes." Roy then contacted Sona and explained the situation. They all headed towards the abandoned factory. "Get out of our way!" Irina shouted angrily at the girl blocking their path. "I told you, it's too dangerous for you to go in there." "I won't let you pass," Chelsea insisted, her arms crossed. "If it weren't for the fact that you gave us money, I would have." Zenobia threatened. "Would have what?" a voice interrupted them, causing both girls to freeze. They slowly turned around and saw Roy and his entourage. Their faces fell. "So you devils are going to interfere in church matters?" Zenobia asked, clenching her fists. "Church matters? Idiots, this isn't just a church matter," Roy retorted, leading the girls towards the factory. "Hey, what do you mean by that?" Irina demanded. "You'll see." Roy waved them along. Zenobia and Irina exchanged glances, then followed. "Oh my! Devils have come to this place," a voice sneered. Just as they were about to enter the factory, three figures jumped down from the walls, landing before them. They were fallen priests, each with an aura comparable to a high-class devil. And they were wielding the three stolen Excalibur swords. "Roy, who are they?" Rias asked, her expression grim. Even she wasn't confident in defeating all three fallen priests. Three high-class devil-level priests wielding the Excalibur swords were indeed formidable opponents. Just some small fry. "The main event hasn't even started yet," Roy scoffed. "Taste the power of the Excalibur," one of the fallen priests roared, charging towards them. "Seiko." "Yes." Seiko responded, intercepting the fallen priest. Clang! 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 The two swordswomen clashed. After the battles in the world of Akame Kill, especially the intense training in the last month, Seiko had finally reached high-class devil level. Although the Excalibur was incredibly effective against devils, Seiko's speed prevented her from being easily hit. Just then, a fat man in a lab coat emerged from the factory. It was Valper Galilei, the mastermind behind the stolen Excalibur swords. "Your task was to eliminate the devils and the church intruders, but it seems that's no longer possible. Contact Sir Kokobile," he instructed the remaining two fallen priests. The fallen priests nodded and contacted Kokobile. Roy smirked. This was exactly what he wanted. It was better for Kokobile to come here than to have him attack Kuo Academy. "Roy, aren't we going to intervene?" Sona asked, puzzled. "Don't worry. The main event is about to begin." "We'll act then," Roy replied with a smile. Seeing that Roy's group wasn't making a move, the two fallen priests also held back, observing the duel between Seiko and their comrade. The fallen priest was powerful. With the Excalibur, his strength was comparable to a peak high-class devil. Seiko, having just reached high-class devil level, was on the defensive. "Thunder breathing, thunder cutter," she shouted, unleashing her strongest technique. Her body crackled with lightning, and she transformed into a golden blur, slashing towards the fallen priest. Clang! A deafening clash echoed as the fallen priest blocked her attack with the Excalibur. Seiko backflipped, creating distance. "Ha ha ha, it's useless. No matter how strong you are, you can't defeat the Excalibur," the fallen priest taunted, laughing maniacally. Seiko, however, wasn't discouraged. She smiled. She hadn't encountered such a strong opponent in a long time. "Demon Slayer mark, activate," she whispered. Her aura surged, becoming even more powerful. A golden lightning bolt mark appeared on her collarbone. The Demon Slayer mark was contagious. Once one person activated it, those around them would gradually awaken it as well, as long as they possessed the strength of a Hashira. After Mitsuri had awakened her mark, Seiko had also managed to awaken hers under her influence. The Demon Slayer mark significantly enhanced physical abilities. The girls were surprised to see Seiko activate her mark. "Seiko-ne-san awakened her mark. Amazing!" Alice exclaimed with admiration. "Damn it! It's all Roy's fault for always taking Seiko to other worlds." Sayad grumbled jealously. It was true. Every time Roy had traveled to another world, he had only taken Seiko. This had allowed Seiko's strength to grow significantly. Of course, Roy had his reasons. The world of Akame Kill was too dark and brutal. He didn't want to expose the other girls to it. "Seiko-ne-san is so strong," Kaneko murmured, a hint of melancholy in her eyes. She watched as everyone around her grew stronger, while she remained stagnant. Kaneko was eager to become stronger. Era, even I might not be a match for Seiko now," Akino commented with a sigh. She had easily defeated Seiko not long ago, but now, Seiko had surpassed her. Seiko, with her Demon Slayer mark activated, unleashed her attack. Thunder breathing, first form, thunderclap and flash eightfold. She transformed into a blur of lightning, charging towards the fallen priest. Clang! 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 A series of clashes echoed through the air as the fallen priest struggled to keep up with Seiko's speed. After a few moments, he couldn't react in time. Thwack! A deep gash appeared on his chest. Ah! The fallen priest cried out in pain and retreated. Just as Siko was about to finish him off, a massive spear of light shot towards her from the distance. Roy reacted instantly, conjuring a massive ice wall that blocked the attack. Boom! The spear of light exploded, but the ice wall held firm. Siko retreated. Who's there? Rias demanded, her eyes narrowed. Roy also blared in that direction. He knew who it was. As expected, a shadowy figure appeared in the sky. It was Kokobile, the fallen angel cadre, with his 10 black wings. His powerful aura pressed down on them, causing the girls to tense up. It's a fallen angel. He has 10 wings. He must be a cadre. He's so strong. Is this the powerful enemy Roy was talking about? Chapter 90, Sisters, it's showtime. It's nice to finally meet you, Princess Gremory. Princess Citri, and Graphia's little brother, Kokobile greeted them, his voice dripping with arrogance as he released his oppressive aura. I am Kokobile. Kokobile, fallen angel cadre, what is your purpose here? Rias demanded, meeting his gaze without fear. Crimson hair is truly beautiful. But the crimson Mao, Surzex. He's disgusting, it makes me want to vomit, Kokobile sneered, his eyes filled with loathing as he looked at Rias. Clearly, Surzex had left a lasting impression on him, and not a pleasant one. I've come to cause some chaos at Kuo Academy, Kokobile continued, his voice laced with madness. That way, Surzex will have no choice but to show his face, wouldn't you agree? The girls' expressions turned serious. Your actions could reignite the war between angels, devils, and fallen angels. Rias exclaimed in disbelief. That's precisely his goal, Roy scoffed, his arms crossed. He wants to start another war. Ha 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 ha. Kokobile let out a maniacal laugh. I was bored after the last war ended. I thought Michael would come after me when I stole the Excalibur swords. But all he sent were some pathetic priests and 2 swordswomen. How boring, how utterly boring. Everyone was shocked. This man was a warmonger who sought to plunge the world into chaos. Mine, Leon, and the others glanced at Esdeath. She seemed to share a similar love for battle and bloodshed. As if sensing their gazes, Esdeath looked at them, a faint blush on her cheeks. I'm not like him, she declared. I already have Roy. She walked over to Roy and embraced him from behind. The other girls' lips twitched. Seriously, Esdeath? Now's not the time for this, they thought. But Esdeath ignored them, clinging to Roy. Roy didn't mind. He wasn't concerned about Kokobile. The real threat tonight was Valley, the White Dragon Emperor, who could easily defeat Kokobile. Kokobile, you think you can come here and leave as you please? Roy scoffed, then waved his hand. The space around them distorted. He had erected a barrier. This way, their battle wouldn't affect the outside world. After all, this was a fight involving strong beings. If they weren't careful, the entire town of Kuo could be destroyed. Oh? I heard Graphia's little brother was a failure. It seems that's not the case, Kokobile said, intrigued by Roy's display of power. As an old-fashioned fallen angel, Kokobile wasn't well informed about recent events in the underworld, so he didn't know about Roy's rise to power. But creating such a large-scale barrier in an instant was no easy feat. Only an ultimate class and above could do that. This young man, possessing such power, piqued Kokobile's interest. However, Kokobile wasn't afraid. He was a fallen angel who had survived the Great War, a veteran of countless battles. He wouldn't be intimidated by a mere child. Trying to stop me? Perhaps you should call Graphia, Kokobile sneered. Whether I stay or leave isn't up to you, Roy retorted with a smirk. Roy, leave him to me, Esdeath declared, stepping forward with excitement in her eyes. Go ahead, Roy nodded. Ha 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 ha. Very well. Consider this an entertaining sideshow. Kokobile laughed, snapping his fingers. A throne resembling a burning torch materialized beneath him. Kokobile sat down, crossing his legs, looking every bit the arrogant villain. Rias and the others were visibly impressed. "Now, let my pets play with you," Kokobile said, snapping his fingers again. A golden light shot from the base of his throne, creating a massive magic circle on the ground. Pillars of fire erupted from the magic circle, and monstrous hounds, their bodies flowing with magma, emerged. "Cerberus?" Rias gasped, recognizing the creatures. "Those are the guard dogs of the underworld," Sona explained. The girls' expressions turned grim. Over 20 Cerberus hounds had already appeared, each with the strength of a middle-class to high-class devil. They were a formidable force. And more Cerberus hounds continued to emerge from the magic circle. "Seiko." "Yes." Seiko responded, then turned to the other girls. "Sisters, it's showtime. I've been waiting for this. Come on, my pumpkin is thirsty for action. Eliminate. Koi, come out." The girls were eager to fight. They charged towards the Cerberus hounds, each utilizing their unique abilities. "Akino, Kaneko, let's join the fray." "Yes, Bucho." "Understood." Inspired by the others, Rias also joined the battle, her fighting spirit ignited. Sona, too, led her peerage into the fray. Even Zenobia and Irina, who had been standing on the sidelines, joined the fight. The battle raged. Mine's pumpkin, with each charged shot, took down a Cerberus hound. Akame and Kurome were even faster, their blades slicing through the hounds with deadly precision. Shinobu and Kane were equally formidable, their movements graceful and their attacks precise. None of the hounds could touch them. Seiko, Nezuko, and Mitsuri faced the 3 fallen priests. Saya's Gyarados rampaged through the horde of Cerberus hounds. In the chaos of battle, some of the girls were injured, keeping Saya and Shizuka busy with healing. Fortunately, there were no serious injuries. Meanwhile, Esdeath and Kokobile's battle had begun. Esdeath spread her devil wings and soared into the sky. "Ha ha ha ha, a new hunt. And you'll be my first prey," she declared, looking at Kokobile with predatory excitement. "Oh? Interesting. I can see that you and I are the same kind of people. How about joining me?" Kokobile chuckled, intrigued by Esdeath's bloodlust. "Humph. Let's see if you can even survive today," Esdeath retorted coldly, her voice filled with killing intent. She drew her rapier and charged towards Kokobile. During the last month in the world of Akame ga Kill, Esdeath had learned to refine her control over ice from Roy. Compared to her previous crude methods, she was now far more skilled. Kokobile, unfazed by her attack, conjured 2 spears of light and engaged her in close combat. Clang! 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 Clash! 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 Their battle was fierce from the start. Esdeath's attacks were relentless and powerful, occasionally augmented by her ice magic. However, Kokobile was a veteran of the Great War, his combat experience far surpassing Esdeath's. They were evenly matched. Roy, sitting on a throne of ice, observed the battles with a proud smile. In just a few months, not only had he become stronger, but his servants had also grown into capable fighters. He felt a sense of accomplishment. As Kokobile focused on his fight against Esdeath, he neglected to maintain the magic circle summoning the Cerberus hounds. The girls steadily whittled down their numbers. Soon, all the hounds were eliminated. The 3 fallen priests were also defeated by Seiko, Nezuko, and Mitsuri. They showed no mercy towards their enemies. Valper Galilei, the mastermind behind the stolen Excalibur swords, was caught in the crossfire and killed. No one mourned his death. The battle on the ground was over. But the battle in the sky had just begun. Kokobile, despite wielding 2 spears of light, couldn't gain an advantage against Esdeath in close combat. His pride was hurt. He couldn't believe he was struggling against a mere girl. He pushed Esdeath back with a powerful attack and hurled his spears of light at her. Esdeath conjured a thick ice wall, blocking the projectiles. Boom! A massive explosion rocked the air, but the ice wall remained intact. Esdeath smirked. She dispelled the ice wall and saw Kokobile charging an incredibly large spear of light. The destructive aura emanating from the spear made even Esdeath apprehensive. But she didn't back down. She charged towards Kokobile. Ha ha ha, die. Kokobile roared, launching the massive spear of light. Be careful. Esdeath-san, dodge. The girls below watched with worry. The spear of light was incredibly fast, reaching Esdeath in an instant. But Esdeath showed no fear. She smirked and uttered a single word. Mahapadma. The sky fell silent. Everything froze. The girls below could only see a flash of ice blue engulfing the sky. Roy smiled. Esdeath had this in the bag. A few seconds later, the sky returned to normal. To everyone's surprise, Esdeath was now standing before Kokobile, her rapier piercing his heart. Kokobile's massive spear of light had missed its target and struck the ground nearby. The impact was like a nuclear explosion, devastating the surrounding area. Even Roy's barrier shook violently. Impossible. Kokobile stared at the rapier protruding from his chest in disbelief. What had just happened? How had she dodged his attack and stabbed him in the heart? Despite his confusion, Kokobile couldn't deny his defeat. However, thanks to his resilient fallen angel physiology, he wouldn't die immediately. Nothing is impossible, Esdeath declared with a triumphant smile. Damn it! I survived the Great War. Even gods and Satans perished, but I survived. How can I die here? Kokobile roared in frustration. The girls were shocked by his words. What do you mean? Rias asked, her voice grave. Oops, I let that slip, didn't I? Kokobile cackled, his madness growing. Kokobile, what do you mean by God is dead? Zenobia and Irina demanded, their eyes fixed on him. They were the most affected by Kokobile's words. Ha 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 ha. Kokobile laughed maniacally. Well, since I intended to start another war, there's no point in hiding it anymore. He glared at them with a sinister grin. In the previous war, your god is dead. Ha 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 ha. The girls were stunned. Zenobia and Irina, in particular, were devastated. Their eyes widened in horror as their faith crumbled. They were on the verge of a breakdown. Asia, however, although shocked, didn't feel the same despair. Asia, are you all right? Saya asked, concerned. She knew Asia was devout and often prayed even when she had a headache. But Asia smiled at her. Thank you, Saya. I'm fine. Saya was surprised. My heart belongs to Roy now. God is no longer important to me, Asia declared, her hands clasped together in a prayer-like gesture. Indeed, Roy was the only one in her heart now. She didn't care about God anymore. Her prayers were merely a habit. Saya felt a pang of jealousy. Why, I've never heard of such a thing, Rias said. Was the creation of the evil pieces also due to the inability to create more pure devils? Kokobile continued, enjoying their reactions. Now, all three factions have to rely on humans to survive. The higher-ups of angels, devils, and fallen angels have concealed this information to protect the humans who still believe in God. It's not true. This can't be true. Zenobia and Irina, their faith shattered, collapsed to the ground in despair. Look, those two idiots have lost their faith. It's the perfect opportunity to recruit them, Roy whispered in Rias' ear, pointing at Zenobia and Irina. Go and work your magic, Riri. Rias' eyes lit up as she looked at the two girls. She approached them, ready to persuade them to join her peerage. That wraps up this part of What If Reborn in Highschool DxD as a Lucifuge. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Quick reminder. The series What If Transmigrated into One Piece and became a Marine will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly at the end of the story. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these 3 fanfics. What if creating the strongest Strawhat crew by reading manga? What if a venerated soul reincarnated in Danmachi world? What if transmigrated and taking over Ichigo's body? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.